What if you spent your whole life trying to solve one problem, and just when you finally found the answer, you realized it was too late? Our hero, Shin Sang-hyun, possessed a rare artifact devouring skill, but he never truly understood how to use it. It took him nearly 30 years of his career to figure out how to actually eat an artifact, and by then, he was already 55, far behind his peers. But fate showed him mercy, granting him a chance to go back 30 years in time. Now, with the body of a 25-year-old and the knowledge of the future, Shin Sang-hyun holds immense potential to walk the path of strength and become a high-level ranker. The story begins when our hero, Shin Sang-hyun, finally clears the dungeon, Ancient Dragon Nest. Shin is completely spent after all the effort, frustrated that he still has to work so hard even though he is almost 60. As a swordsman, he has lived 30 years of professional life, but he doesn't have any special achievements besides being the country's top 100 swordsman, which he doesn't consider a big deal because there are already thousands of players in this world. He looks at his reward and wonders whether he got a skill book this time. He has eaten artifacts before because of his skill and ponders whether he can eat this one too. Then he notices a notification stating that the constellation Late Bloomer model has been extended. A man steps out from a portal. His system informs him that this man is a student of the Late Bloomer model who praises him for his hard work, speaking in Hindi, which Shin doesn't understand. He also compliments Shin for his impeccable final strike. Now Shin understands that this student is his contracted constellation. He awkwardly thanks him for choosing Shin as his contract, because Shin is nothing but a third-rate swordsman. Not only that, he receives other benefits as well. When he reaches level 850, all artifacts and titles will be doubled. At level 900, his stats will be tripled. However, Shin is quite disappointed, as his level is only 650. He knows he can't be this constellation's contractor because he doesn't meet the requirements. Then the student urges him to eat the book, which he was going to do anyway. He exclaims that he is going to eat it. Devouring an artifact is the only skill he acquired when he awakened as a player. Initially, he doesn't understand his skill and tries to cook the artifacts in order to eat them. He even fries them, but feels nothing. This experiment ends up costing him 30 years. Eventually, he uses mana synchronization with an artifact of a suitable rank. This trick helps him activate his Devour artifact skill, but the problem is, he realizes this too late. Other players had already gotten stronger and far ahead of him because they started early. Then he looks inside the book and, irritated, asks the student whether it should have some instructions since it's a skill book. The student replies that he has very limited information about this particular book. He happily suggests that Shin wait and try using mana synchronization again. After all, Shin obviously has lots of time to spare. But Shin is angry at hearing this. He yells that he doesn't have much time left. He's already almost 60. If he had a child at 30, that child would be turning 30 now. Or even earlier, he might have grandchildren. At that, the student apologizes for his words, but Shin tries to shake it off. The Late Bloomer model student isn't wrong. It's just that Shin's life is full of regret. He then remembers a person from his youth whom he admired and wanted to be like. Then he states with a tired sigh that it's too late to fulfill this dream because he's too old. He wishes he were a little younger. At that, the student's expression turns meaningful. He realizes that he's going to retire anyway. He asks the constellation to go to another player, as he's going to cancel their contract. But when he turns, the constellation is already ready with active magic, though Shin doesn't understand what's happening. This is his last scene, as it's the final memory of his 50-year-old self. His system informs him that the Late Bloomer model student has used the essence he had been experimenting with. With that, regression begins. The scene shifts to the player G reporter, Park Jung-min, asking whether dungeons and gates are essentially the best playgrounds that help train players. Hyunjung Corporation's CEO, Han Hyunjung, answers that in this way, dungeons can become stepping stones for players. But gates are literally the entrances to other dimensions that help them witness the unknown. With these two regions, players can learn and thrive. The debate continues on TV while a very young version of Shin watches. While cleaning his dagger, he comments on how he has regressed. It's been a while since he last watched this series. Now he needs to grasp the situation, even though it's already been 4 days since he awakened 30 years in the past. He remembers that he had lost consciousness, and when he wake up, he was in his studio apartment, back in the past. He doesn't understand how he's in his 25-year-old body with all the memories of his previous life intact. He thinks hard, but as far as he can tell, the only reason for his regression is the doing of the constellation. With a smile, he reflects on his confused mind but still plans to go out and work out. He looks at his dagger, which is a Venomith dagger, a low-rank weapon. But the good thing is, Shin already knows its hidden skill. It has an absorption rate of 10% for bronze artifacts and 20% if he has used the artifact previously. He knows the absorption rate is low, but he also knows that the real value lies in its hidden skill. He has already initiated the absorption with mana synchronization. His system informs him that he is entering the gap of consciousness. The gap of consciousness is basically the space that helps him devour an artifact. As usual, Shin feels quite nervous coming here, because it's like a surprise menu waiting for him. The next moment, he sees a whole chicken cooking in a pan. Finally, the pan is placed in front of him while his system informs him that the preparation to absorb the dagger has been completed. He looks at the rotisserie BBQ chicken drizzled with olive oil. He's glad to see a normal dish in front of him instead of something weird to represent the dagger. With that, he starts eating the chicken, thinking that he could always devour artifacts if they're served like this. With that, the absorption begins. He permanently acquires 2 points of agility. Not only that, he also acquires the skill Demon's Bash. Then his system informs him that after the absorption of the artifact, it will disappear permanently. With that, he's back at his home. He regrets a little about the dagger being gone, but consoles himself that he wasn't going to use it anyway. The important thing is that he got the skill he wanted. Now, he should go. Meanwhile, at Dungeon 85 in Team Yoon's squad, someone approaches the team leader, Yoon. Yoon asks the reason for the Porter Group leader's visit. The Porter leader explains that one of his team members has left the job. He was a newcomer named Shin, our hero. At that, Yoon consoles him, while saying that he shouldn't worry about Shin because he's going to join the players. The Porter team leader is quite baffled to hear the news. Yoon himself has approved this and even asks whether the Porter leader has any problem with it. The Porter leader explains that Shin has just recently awakened and hasn't even completed the player academy. It has never happened before that Yoon added someone like Shin to his team. Besides, there's a risk of imbalance in his own team due to issues in work distribution. So, Yoon firmly calls the team leader and asks whether he hasn't taken care of everything, including his team and the contribution system. His response shocks the Porter leader, who apologizes. When he walks away, Yoon's subordinate praises him for shutting down the Porter leader, but also expresses curiosity, as it's unusual for Yoon to accept someone like Shin into his team. Yoon laughs at that and explains that he can use Shin as a sacrifice. If anyone needs to die, Shin will die. That'll also shut the Porters' mouths. Besides, he believes that as a level 1 player, Shin won't be able to continue anyway. His subordinate understands him. At that moment, Shin greets them and introduces himself. The Porters glare at him with hateful eyes. Shin is very nervous under everyone's stares, but he thinks that they could at least bother to hide their expressions. Then Yoon greets him back with a quip, saying that he thought Shin is going to be late on his very first day as a player. He then notices that Shin has a great sword as his weapon. Shin sheepishly answers that he's studied a lot of videos on longsword techniques. Yoon reminds him that the longsword is the hardest kind of sword to wield. Shin replies that he's confident he can at least protect himself, so Yoon should trust him. Then Yoon enthusiastically puts his arm around Shin's shoulder, expressing that Shin has spirit, just like him. He then exclaims and orders his team to start the dungeon raid. With that, they enter the dungeon while Yoon instructs Shin to stand by at the entrance once he enters. Everyone discusses how many monsters they're going to kill. However, Yoon keeps his eyes on Shin with a thoughtful expression. He scorns the fact that Shin studied sword fighting through YouTube. He thinks Shin has become arrogant just because of his awakening and getting player rank. He assumes Shin has a death wish. But either way, it still fits into his plan, because this orc dungeon is famous for being the wailing wall for newbies. Yoon grins evilly, thinking Shin is going to realize his place very soon. But later, his grin twists into a grimace of shock the moment he finds the corpses of numerous orcs killed by Shin, forcing him to question Shin's real identity. Orcs are fictional creatures often seen in fantasy universes. Most of the time, people assume them to be weak compared to mighty beings like dragons. In this regard, orcs are seen as chaotic, stupid, and inferior. This is precisely why new players often underestimate them and rush in, thinking they can easily defeat them. One such player now charges at an orc, casually assuming that an orc's fighting style is simple. But in the next instant, the orc grabs the player, standing an average of 250 centimeters tall and weighing 180 kilos. This physical disparity is their main advantage, giving them the upper hand over humans. It's for this reason that orcs have earned the nickname the Wall of Lament. Now Yoon is seen leading his team inside the dungeon. One of the senior players reminds Shin that he won't receive any special treatment just because he's new. The Porter leader, meanwhile, holds a grudge against Shin for becoming a player immediately after awakening. Shin simply smiles and assures them that he'll do his best, earning only a scoff from the senior. Then Shin pauses for a moment and asks whether he can fight on the front lines if he's on his own, which momentarily baffles the senior. Before he can answer, he spots an orc behind them. Shin is visibly excited for his first battle and prepares to engage, but in the next moment, the senior player shoves the orc away with his shield. He curses Shin for trying to use a sword when his movements are that slow. The senior snaps that he doesn't need Shin's help, he just needs him to prove his skills. While listening to the rant, Shin calmly coaxes him to look ahead. Cursing again, the senior attempts to attack the orc, but his eyes widen in shock as the orc begins to overpower him. Yoon intervenes just in time and somehow pushes the orc back. Furious, he shouts at Shin and the rest of his companions that they're not on a picnic. Everyone apologizes and is amazed by Yoon's skill. Yoon asks everyone to stay back as he prepares to handle the orc. The orc charges at him, but Yoon blocks the attack and, in the next moment, stabs the orc in its heart. Everyone is excited, hoping that the orc is dead. However, the orc grins and raises its axe, attempting to attack Yoon again. Yoon swiftly dodges the attack while Shin watches everything with a calm expression. Shin believes that Yoon is the highest level player in the team, but in reality, Yoon is only level 50 and struggles to hit the orc. Yoon tries again, this time successfully stabbing the orc. The orc falls, leading everyone to believe it might be dead. The team is amazed to see Yoon kill an orc on his own. Yoon instructs everyone to move ahead, but his command is interrupted when they witness a mass of orcs charging toward them. Panic sets in as they see the incoming orcs, and they turn to Yoon for guidance. Yoon suggests retreating for the safety of the team, knowing that he's struggling to defeat even one orc, and an entire army is approaching. Shin, however, surprises everyone when he offers his services to fight the orcs. The others think he has gone crazy. Yoon tries to reason with Shin, telling him that while he's excited about his awakening, but he should be more cautious. But Shin ignores Yoon's words and dashes toward the orcs. The others warn him that he's going to get himself killed. However, with a swift, decisive swing of his blade, Shin kills one of the orcs, splitting it in two. Everyone is shocked to see that a newbie managed to kill a high-level orc. Shin, on the other hand, wonders why he didn't get the nice strike on the orcs he usually makes on an orc's line because of his first-level status. The remaining orcs, furious at the death of their companion, charge toward Shin. But Shin is unfazed. Despite being a first-level player, he has plenty of experience in his arsenal. He readies his sword, determined to take them on. One by one, Shin slashes through the orcs. One attempts to attack him, but Shin dodges effortlessly, breaking its mask with a swing of his sword. He casually states that he's killed plenty of orcs in his younger days. Meanwhile, the spectators are in complete shock, questioning whether this is really the same Shin they know. Finally, Shin prepares for the last battle, facing the armored orc, the dungeon's final boss. The armored orc roars in fury as it rushes toward Shin, intent on finishing him off. Shin is ready and they clash, sword against axe. Yoon, witnessing the entire ordeal, shouts at Shin that his attack isn't going to work. The armored orc's skin is far too thick. Meanwhile, the orc stares at Shin with a glint in its eyes. Shin thinks it's just being dramatic. It's time for Shin to use his newly acquired skill, Demon Bash. When the orc places its weapon on Shin's shoulder, he tells it to stay still with a smile. The orc yells, but Demon Bash stuns him for a moment. Therefore, in the very next moment, it's flat on the ground, knocked down by Shin. Yoon and his minions are left stunned, unable to believe what they're seeing. The corpses of the orcs in front of them are taken down by a player who awakened just 3 days ago, which seem almost unreal. Yoon thinks about Shin's hindrance skill, referring to Shin's Demon Bash skill. He remembers that even top-ranked players only manage to activate the skill for 1.5 seconds. And yet, here's Shin, already amazing with a greatsword, claiming he learned how to wield it just by watching YouTube videos. Yoon makes a mental note to ask which videos he watched. He's completely flabbergasted to realize that Shin actually used hindrance against a fully armored orc. Meanwhile, Shin levels up. Not only that, he also receives an F-rank title tagged as Fearless Immature Puppy. With this title, he gains 5 points in evasion. Shin isn't particularly eager about leveling up, but he does enjoy stacking up evasion points. He also has one available stat point that he can use to boost any of his attributes. He already knows exactly which stat he wants to increase. He's learned, albeit a bit too late in life, that luck is the most important thing. So, he raises his luck stat, knowing it will help him enhance his skills and increase the chances of acquiring rare artifact drops. For him, it's a necessity. His system notifies him that his luck stat has been successfully increased. Then Yoon speaks up and asks if he's really Shin. He follows up by asking where Shin learned the hindrance skill from. Shin turns to him, silently thinking that he obviously can't reveal the truth, that he's from the future and using the skills of his past self. So he lies and says he got the skill when he awakened. But Yoon doesn't buy it. It doesn't add up. Yoon, eyeing Shin's sword, remarks that he might have just gotten lucky and gotten his hands on a diamond rank artifact, or something even higher. At that, Shin extends his sword toward him and tells Yoon to check for himself. Yoon agrees and takes the sword. He inspects it closely. It's a faded greatsword, which is a completely ordinary weapon. Yoon exclaims in disbelief that the sword is just another run-of-the-mill piece, and Shin really does possess that kind of skill. He mutters a curse under his breath, frustrated that even after 2 years of experience as a player and reaching level 50, he still hasn't acquired a skill like hindrance. And now, to top it off, he'll have to share his pay with Shin. His thoughts are interrupted by one of his team members, who informs him that the middle boss has awakened. With a grumpy expression, he orders his team to move out. Then he turns to Shin, thanks him begrudgingly for taking care of the minions, but warns him not to overstep again, because he won't be able to win against the demon orc they're about to face. At that, Shin smirks, suddenly remembering the real reason he joined this party after returning back in time. He then addresses Yoon and challenges him, asking if he's scared that Shin might actually have the skill to kill the demon orc on his own and claim the artifact. He chuckles, adding that it would only be fair, since rewards are distributed based on each member's contribution. The artifact Shin is referring to is the Crimson Stone, which can only be obtained by defeating the demon orc. The catch, however, is that no one really knows whether the Crimson Stone will appear or not until after the fight, because it rarely appears. But Shin knows with certainty that this particular demon orc will drop the Crimson Stone. In his past life, his team had failed to defeat the demon orc. Another team managed to kill it instead, and walked away with the Crimson Stone. Back then, Shin sat with a defeated expression, watching the other team cheer and congratulate their leader for acquiring the Crimson Stone, an artifact capable of fetching an enormous price. But what caught Shin's attention even more was the unique ability the artifact held, a delay skill. That was the moment Shin became obsessed. Now in the present, the delay skill is exactly what he desperately wants. Then, he asks the team leader if the reward is given according to the contribution of the team members. Then there shouldn't be any issue if he defeats the demon orc by himself. Yoon stays silent for a moment. Shin, however, desperately wants the delay skill, even though he knows he'll gain a bad reputation for being arrogant as a beginner. He knows they won't take him seriously. And that's exactly what happens when one of the team members asks if he's gone mad. Just after defeating a bunch of orcs, he's already thinking of himself as a big shot. He tries to calm them down, but they're interrupted by Yoon's voice, who tells Shin to do as he wishes. The players are shocked by Yoon's decision, but Yoon adds a condition. Shin can enter the dungeon and kill the demon orc, but only if Yoon fails to kill it first. Shin's face lights up at the condition. He tells them he'll step out of the battle. Yoon tells him again to do as he wishes, moving ahead with his minions following behind. On his way, he thinks of Shin as nothing more than an arrogant fool who believes he's a big deal just because he got a great skill. As he opens the door, Yoon is determined to clear the dungeon and shut Shin's mouth. He wants to prove that experience is superior to skill. He opens the door, and his system notifies him that he has entered the room of the middle boss. There stands a formidable middle boss named the bloodthirsty demon orc. Yoon orders everyone to prepare for battle. While looking at the boss, he recalls the information he received claiming that this boss is easier to defeat. He instructs his team to form a circle around the boss and attack from the rear. He scoffs at Shin's wish to defeat the demon orc solo. Determined not to give Shin any chance, he rushes toward the boss, exclaiming that he's taking the lead. Moments later, he's thrown to the ground, his head injured and bleeding. Yoon gets up, dazed, wondering what exactly just happened. Shin, watching from a distance, thinks he had assumed they'd retreat, but instead, they foolishly charged at the demon orc head-on. He remembers that the defeat last time happened for the exact same reason. Yoon's team members look to him, asking what they should do next. One of them reminds him they'll die if they continue like this. While looking at the orc, Yoon recalls the previous one, which had also been unexpectedly strong. He regrets relying on false information from the market. He then turns to his team and orders them to retreat for now. When they see the smiling face of our boy, they get quite irritated. One of them asks what's the deal with him. However, Yoon insists they retreat, pointing out that due to the demon orc's low vision, they can escape from its flank. Everyone feels grateful for the order. Yoon then turns to Shin and warns him not to blame him if he dies. With his sword in hand, Shin assures him that he needn't worry because he's not going to die. Now, he stands before the demon orc, which is yelling and charging toward him. But our boy is completely ready. He knows that if he looks at their stat difference, he wouldn't have any chance of winning against the demon orc. But the experience from his past life is his greatest advantage. He attacks the demon orc. Meanwhile, Yoon's team turns around, baffled as they hear the loud clank, a sound that means Shin has managed to deflect the boss's axe. Shin, however, mockingly complains that his hand hurts, saying that all he can do is deflect. He then looks keenly at the crimson stone. With this stone, he can gain the delay skill, which he can combine with his demon bash. The 2-second stun from Demon Bash could be drastically improved with the delay skill. Not only that, he's sure his main skill, Devourer Artifact, can help him combine different skills. This is why he gets the idea to combine his Demon Bash with a skill that can increase the stun effect, potentially allowing him to achieve an infinite stun while fighting. He realizes that the delay skill is key to making this possible. He then challenges the demon orc to come at him. The boss angrily tries to strike, but Shin is pleased with his progress. This part of his plan is working. He's seeing the demon orc's weak spot. He dodges the attack, causing the demon orc's axe to stick into the ground. Without wasting any time, Shin activates Demon Bash, stunning the demon orc for 2 seconds. Meanwhile, Yoon is baffled to see that the skill can be used on the middle boss as well. Shin tries to mock the demon orc, pointing out that orcs have simple fighting patterns, yet this one is supposed to be a boss. But he's stunned when, in the next moment, the demon orc breaks free from the stun and tries to attack him. It's a close call, but Shin manages to block the strike with his sword. He then remembers that the demon orc has a regeneration ability, which can counter his demon bash and lift the stun. Now Shin needs to wait 15 seconds to use demon bash again. This is exactly why he needs the delay skill. He realizes he has no other choice but to defeat the demon orc without it. With that, he charges forward with his sword, facing the demon orc head on. Yoon watches the fight, but his subordinate reminds him to retreat, as it seems Shin is not winning either. While observing Shin's face, Yoon can't understand why he's still so calm, especially when his stun skill isn't working, and there's a huge difference in stats between Shin and the demon orc. He wonders if Shin is really just a beginner player. As he deflects the demon orc's attack, Yoon reflects on how he's experienced a similar situation in his past life. If he's too weak against an enemy, he needs to focus on one point, rather than thinking about cutting down the whole enemy at once. Now, Shin needs to use the orc's strength to his advantage to make a way for himself. With that, he cuts through the demon orc and receives a congratulatory message from his system. He levels up twice and also obtains the E-rank title of Demon Hunter. With this title, he gains regeneration abilities 5 times faster. Looking at his system, he feels relieved to get the 2 titles, a benefit of being a solo player. Then, he looks at Yoon and his team, who are completely speechless for a while. Seeing their reactions, Shin knows what he needs to do to avoid an awkward situation. He dramatically shouts that he almost died. He credits the leader for inflicting enough damage on the demon orc. The blonde one asks the leader when he was able to damage the demon orc. At first, Yoon doesn't understand what's happening. Shin knows that Yoon isn't stupid enough not to grab the chance to preserve his honor in front of his team. While looking at the Crimson Stone, Yoon understands that he needs to keep his promise. He turns to his team and exclaims that now they've defeated the middle boss, they need to prepare for the final boss. Everyone complies. After a while, they ascend the stairs, commenting that there's no way a newbie like Shin can defeat the boss on his own. One member wishes they had a stun skill as well, but another reminds them that it won't work on bosses. Once they're gone, Shin grins as he looks at the Crimson Stone. It's time to activate it. He examines the stats of the Crimson Stone, which is a silver artifact. It's a crystallization that strengthens tenacity and endurance. In order to devour Crimson Stone, our guy enters into the gap of unconsciousness, and the system serves him a dish by the master chef that is bibim naengmyeon with meat jelly. The combination of flavors leave him satisfied, as if everything is finally going in his favor. He is then notified that his body is ready to absorb the Crimson Stone. As he takes a bite, the process of absorption begins. Due to his silver rank, the base absorption rate stands at 20%. His strength and health stats increase by +2, and a special effect known as delay is added to his skill set. With this effect, he gains the ability to impose a delay on any skill he chooses. Although the new effect unsettles him slightly, he binds it to Demon Bash. The system confirms the effect's addition. If he uses Demon Bash before the initial stun wears off, the enemy will be forced into a second stun. The third strike has a 90% chance of triggering another, the fourth carries a 60% chance, and by the fifth, the probability drops to 30%. When Shin gets back to consciousness, he's filled with satisfaction. He once believed a guaranteed 4-second stun to be only theoretical, but now it's proven real. Just then, Yoon approaches him, initiating a conversation. He informs him that the boss room lies just ahead where the Orc Berserker awaits. When our guy offers to join, he surprisingly declines. He explains that as a leader, it would be irresponsible not to utilize someone with Shin's capabilities. With a firm handshake, he invites him to cooperate. Our guy agrees but keeps his conditions unchanged. Yoon accepts. Just then, a player reports that the group is ready to proceed. Yoon nods and tells everyone to stay sharp. Our guy notices the blonde player's scowl and finds it puzzling. To raise morale, Yoon reminds the team that they're nearly done and suggests they go out for drinks afterward. At Dungeon 85, the final boss room, the Orc Berserker appears, terrifying in stature, with massive fangs and wild hair obscuring its face. Yoon offers to enter first, but our dude steps forward, insisting they go in together. The boldness in his tone stuns the others. Instead of listening his leader, he charges while thinking that, unlike demon orcs, Orc Berserkers have lower resistance to skills. With calm, controlled attacks, stunning it should be achievable. The Orc Berserker lunges. At that moment, Shin questions if he was truly the one who spoke so confidently. As a child, fear ruled him. In adulthood, survival consumed him. But now he refuses to live the same way. He must change and prove it, here and now. With everyone watching, our guy unleashes a single devastating slash, nearly cleaving the boss in half. Yoon watches in awe, calling him a monster. Shin announces the enemy is stunned for 4 seconds. He activates the Demon Bash skill. He tells the others to charge in and unleash everything they have. The Orc Berserker writhes in agony as blows rain down on it. Finally, the Orc Berserker is defeated, and Dungeon 85 is cleared. A player with a shield remarks on how easy the dungeon felt. Another credits the victory to the stun effect. In the back, the porters gossip among themselves, wondering if Shin already has a personal porter. One of them plans to ask, but another, hoping to do the same, protests. The system then informs him that he has leveled up and earned the title Overwhelming Power, Rank D. This title extends all his status effects by 10%. He reflects on how many titles he's collecting, something he never achieved in his past life. Yet even now, it pales compared to one man, Do Kyung-soo, the Ghostblade, the Complete Sword, Korea's strongest swordsman. Just 2 years into the era of players, Do Kyung-soo surpassed level 500. In Shin's previous life, Do Kyung-soo was untouchable, but this time he intends to catch up, if not surpass him. Fueled by determination, our guy stretches. Yoon approaches and praises his efforts, handing him a reward item. Surprised, he accepts it and asks what prompted the gift. Yoon explains that our guy carried the team, and that the item, a bronze rank artifact, wasn't valuable enough to hoard. Blunt as always, he jokes he wouldn't have given it away if it were worth much. But inwardly, Yoon is aware that Shin is now on a different level and likely won't be part of their team for long. The realization stings. From a distance, the blonde player watches the exchange, seething with jealousy. After years of loyalty, he feels discarded. To him, Shin is just a newcomer who got lucky. His rage bubbling over, he takes out his phone and mutters that the two should die together. He makes a call. The next morning, back in Shin's apartment in Songpa District, Jamsil-dong, he feels content. While most porters earn only $200 per day, his bank account holds $6 million. Clearly, Yoon had paid him more than double, with a bonus item as well. That item, the Berserker Ring, is a bronze artifact with the effects Lighten and Strength plus 10. Normally dropped by Orc Berserkers, the ring amplifies blood rage. To use it properly, one must spend 1 mana per second, reducing the combined weight of all equipped artifacts to 1 kilo. Our guy now understands why it's only bronze tier. Most players would deplete their mana before even swinging their sword. But he isn't most players. Though it took him 50 years in his past life to realize his strength, he now uses every lesson to his advantage. He knows that artifacts needing mana usually carry penalties, but once devoured, those penalties are overwritten. Their effects stay, but the mana costs vanish. Excited by this realization, he prepares for another one of his signature mukbang challenges. The mana synchronization with the Berserker Ring has already begun, and he doesn't care about the risks. To him, every new skill is a step forward. Meanwhile, in a private club in Gangnam District, Seoul, the yellow-haired player furiously claims he wasn't lying about the 4-second stun. A man sitting across from him asks if he's raising his voice. Instantly, the player falls silent. The man asks why he should care. When pressed, the player denies seeking revenge, claiming it's only business. But the man sees through him. His companion, a woman, whispers something in his ear. With a cold smirk, the scarred man turns back and slashes the player's ear. He reminds the trembling player that they are not his servants. As he pours liquor over the wound, he declares the man will pay, his voice, his loyalty, everything, by the worth of that ear. And then, with cruel calm, he asks again about our guy. The next day, at the Jamshil 4-3 training grounds, Shin finds himself sitting on a staircase while thinking about the foul taste of cold cucumber soup. The taste does not appeal to him, although he continues eating because it is the only thing available after his return from the Berserker Ring. His stomach rumbles from the flavor, yet he remains optimistic since he believes that there is always light waiting at the end of a dark tunnel. But now he twirls his greatsword with ease, feeling how much lighter it has become. That is due to the lightweight effect from the Devourer artifact skill. The skill no longer consumes mana, and although the penalty has halved its overall effect, every artifact he carries now weighs only 100 grams. This passive advantage convinces him to stick with the greatsword for now. When he checks his player information, he sees that he is at level 7 and currently holds 3 titles. He has no constellation yet, but he does have an exclusive skill known as Devour Artifact, and he has already consumed 3 artifacts. His stats show that he has 324 HP and 32 MP, and his experience points stand at 307. He knows that gaining the attention of a constellation is essential for his growth, yet a player can only have one. Therefore, he must be cautious in choosing. Ideally, he wants one that aligns well with his best attribute, which is luck. However, he also understands that his current stats may not be enough to attract a constellation's interest, so for now, all he can do is train. Then he stands in front of 100 training dummies and prepares to continue building his strength. Later, a car speeds through a road and our guy steps out, barely able to stand straight. 3 days of constant training followed by a long-distance drive has taken its toll. He thinks the exhaustion might kill him, but there is one reward: that he has gained a new passive skill called ambidextrous sword training. It increases his adaptability with all swords, except for daggers and one-handed longswords, and this makes it ideal for a swordsman like him. He soon arrives at dungeon number 101, which is a solo player exclusive dungeon. Normally, he would need to wait months just to enter such a place, but having a car allows him to reach it without delay. When he gets there, he notices something strange. A black car is parked nearby and he realizes he has been followed into the forest. He does not know who they are or what they want, but whatever their intentions may be, he plans to deal with them inside the dungeon. Moments later, a group of men enters the dungeon. They are not solo players, and when one of them with a scarred eye hears that this dungeon is meant for solo use only, he seems surprised. Our guy waits silently at the side, knowing very well that they have entered intentionally. He tells them it is his dungeon, but the men mock him and ask if he is an idiot. He warns them again, saying he will not report them if they leave immediately. Still, he knows they will not back off so easily. He observes them carefully and notes that they lack a healer and a mage. They have chosen to ignore sustainability, which is essential in clearing a dungeon, and instead rely only on swordsmen and an archer. He recognizes them as a group known for hunting other players. People call them the Hyena Pack. The large man in the group mocks his confidence, and the archer remains cold and alert. Shin remembers that they are eradicated by the Players Association's constant surveillance. He looks at the archer and remembers that he is the most difficult to deal with. Our guy remarks that they should hurry up and start fighting. He tells them that if he needs to get rid of bodies, there is no better place than a dungeon. This provokes the group. The man with the scarred eye suggests taking him out the easy way, and the large man says that tearing his mouth off would be easy enough. Our guy stays calm and urges them not to waste his time. He wants them to attack all at once. When they do, he reacts immediately. To him, dungeons are places where the rule of survival of the fittest truly applies. Monsters constantly try to kill him, and players seek artifacts with the same desperation. There are no rules inside a dungeon, and death comes easily. His past life taught him this lesson, and while unleashing his sword, he understands that killing here means surviving. With that in his mind, he charges at the group, and he brings down 2 members in a swift strike. He challenges remaining to come to him. The rest quickly retreat and try to find a better position while the archer prepares to cover them. The archer cannot believe that our guy has already killed Sangho, who was level 100, while Shin has only recently awakened. Shin spins his sword and locks his eyes on the archer. The archer panics, fires arrows, and shouts that Shin is a monster. Shin cuts through the arrows and rushes forward. His greatsword slams into the archer, who collapses in disbelief. The others think he left himself open by throwing the weapon, but Shin runs toward it. As he reaches for the sword, the remaining 2 enemies charge at him, thinking they have an advantage. Just as they strike, a bright light blinds them. When their vision returns, they see Shin balancing upside down on the hilt of his sword. They call him insane. He pulls the blade free and kills one of them immediately. The scarred man, Jante, uses his comrade's body as a shield, but it makes no difference. Shin cuts them down without hesitation. As he watches the scene unfold, he concludes that these people are likely organ traffickers, who are chasing the power of mana stones through forced transplants. He realizes they do not operate on trust but on greed. They are not here as a party, they are here for profit. Jante tells him that knowledge will not save him, yet Shin remains composed and calmly replies that he was only curious. He activates a skill called Demon Bash, and Jante is stunned for 4.4 seconds. He cannot believe it. The light wounds he received earlier now matter, and the skill punishes him through them. Shin tells him it is already over. Jante becomes increasingly confused. He has always been the predator, luring new players, earning their trust, and then killing them. Now he feels fear, and he realizes what it means to be hunted. Shin asks him if this is the first time he has ever felt fear. Blood soon soaks the ground. After the fight, Shin wipes the blade clean and tells himself not to grow used to moments like this. He thinks there is no way a constellation would choose him after what happened, but he insists it was all in self-defense. As he looks around, he notices the artifacts left behind and picks them up, and he has obtained 8 artifacts by now, which are left by the team. He guesses that now all of them belong to him. Shin now finds himself at level 10, wrapped in his coat, having already consumed 11 artifacts. His HP has risen to 400, and his MP stands at 50. With an EXP of 12, every one of his stats has significantly improved. Though he would have preferred to avoid such drastic circumstances, he admits that based on the outcome, it was ultimately worthwhile. He also feels relieved that consuming artifacts didn't lead to weight gain. Judging purely by his current stats, he estimates that he's now comparable in strength to players at level 50. He marvels at how quickly he has progressed, describing his growth rate as unreal. From his pocket, he retrieves a ring that is an item called the Recovery Ring. It instantly clears any abnormal status effects using 10 mana, though reusing it within a minute doubles the mana cost. He recalls that the large opponent who charged at him earlier had worn this exact ring. That encounter had caught him off guard, and he realizes now that relying solely on his stun attack back then could have ended badly. It's a mistake he vows not to repeat. The mana synchronization process linked to the ring initiates within Dungeon No. 101, specifically on the internal access road. Goblins begin to emerge along that path. One of them suddenly senses movement, and it's Shin, approaching quietly. To earn the coveted Lucky Day title, the condition is brutal. Eliminate 500 monsters with his eyes closed. The goblins seem puzzled by his behavior, but one suddenly notices his gleaming sword and begins to drool with anticipation. Shin, now more alert than ever, is surprised by how clearly he can sense his surroundings. He's tuned into the faint airflow and every subtle noise around him. Staying completely focused, he reminds himself that he's got this. Looking more composed and alert, can even hear the water droplets echoing around him. More sounds follow and he prepares for combat. A goblin charges, but with a single precise slash, our guy cuts it down effortlessly. Blood splashes across the area. Though shocked at first, he admits the thrill of battle feels satisfying. Another strike is incoming and he senses it just in time and deflects it. He even manages to catch an arrow midair, leaving the archer goblin stunned. Shin reflects briefly on how recently he was in a dire situation, yet that experience helped sharpen his senses. Now those very memories guide his instincts. With newfound confidence, he taunts the goblins to attack. A mob swarms him, but he moves like a whirlwind, slicing through them with ease. Heads roll. Blood coats his sword. Soon, only one goblin remains, trembling in fear, already accepting its fate. Shin's blade drips crimson as he stands in a pool of blood. He's leveled up and unlocked the D-rank title Lucky Day. Smiling, he removes his blindfold. The title grants him plus $20 to his luck stat and boosts it by 0.1 every time he defeats a monster of the same kind, up to a max of plus 10. It's a welcome reward. It's one of the titles he's been aiming for. Just then, more goblins round the corner, shocked by the massacre of their comrades. Shin, wearing an intimidating expression, sees this as a golden opportunity to rack up more points. His stats update. His luck stat has now increased by 30. Overcome with joy, he trembles and breaks into loud laughter just from the bonus the title grants. He muses that the value of this stat boost could easily be in the hundreds of millions and maybe even a billion. But then, a red light flashes behind him. His face hardens. This event has arrived sooner than expected. The system informs him that 3 constellations have descended. One, known as the Cleaner of a Fallen Dimension, inquires if he's interested in spreading misfortune to others. Another, the Pilgrim of Grand Space, is fascinated by our guy's mysterious aura and requests an audience. And finally, the Goddess of Luck smiles warmly as she extends her hand toward him. Shin mentally notes how sudden their appearance was. With a grin, he wonders aloud what the constellations thought of the little show he just performed. Unexpectedly, the Goddess of Luck begins to step toward him. Our dude looking at 3 constellations begins to question whether he's grown too confident. Though he hasn't encountered such circumstances in his previous life, he thinks that perhaps he should trust himself more. Something about the situation suggests that he's no longer the same uncertain man he once was. The Goddess of Luck appears intrigued by him. She tells him that she has never before witnessed a swordsman so favored by fortune. When Shin responds that people often call him lucky, he secretly feels relieved. The attention from the constellations comforts him. It suggests he's on the right path. Among them, the Cleaner of a Fallen Dimension praises his hidden cruelty, a trait admired among slayers. Our guy suspects that this interest might be due to how quickly he eliminated the goblins. At the same time, the Pilgrim of Grand Space observes him in silence. Shin doesn't understand why this constellation has appeared, but he recalls hearing that this particular being only shows up for players with the potential to become saints. He assumes that the presence of the Goddess of Luck may have attracted such attention. Rumors say she's well liked even among the other constellations. Noticing his gaze, the goddess explains that she has no exclusive desires. Even if he chooses a different constellation now, she promises he'll have the opportunity to contract with her in the future. This reminds Shin of a powerful tale, one about the Archer of Miracles, Hashimoto Yuki. That archer, known for never missing his target, was said to be blessed by the world itself. His arrows never ran out, and his strikes defied logic. Though many dismissed his feats as fabrications, he knows the truth that the archer's strength came from a contract with the goddess of luck. She is the one who turned miracles into reality. With 3 constellations standing before him, Shin informs them that he needs time to think. They urge him not to hesitate and to choose based on his own will. Still, he feels the weight of the decision that what if this is his only chance, and what if no others ever come? He reflects on his past life, where, during his first 10 years, only one constellation reached out to him, the late bloomer student. That appearance had felt like salvation after years of suffering. Though it sparked hope, nothing changed until he turned 55, when the contract finally allowed him to regress. For that he is grateful, but it also means he may never get another second chance. He reminds himself that this time, he must choose wisely. Faced with 3 paths that are holy powers, destruction or luck, he takes a deep breath and makes his decision. He presses the accept button. The contract with the goddess of luck is sealed. She seems pleasantly surprised by his choice. The system informs him that even in death, the contract remains valid for 30 years. As the contract is completed, a being from another dimension silently watches. 15 friendly constellations appear to offer their congratulations and wish him well. At the same time, 3 hostile ones, each of whom hope to form a contract with him, issue threats, declaring their intention to hinder his progress. Shin feels confused by the sudden attention but chooses to let it go. He extends his hand toward the goddess of luck, and she accepts the gesture with grace, praising his decision. Another constellation, the mana dealer, echoes her sentiments, calling it a wise move. Soon after, the goddess asks him to make a wish. He's presented with 4 options. The first guarantees a critical hit with every attack. The second ensures that any artifact ranked unique or higher will immediately activate its abilities. The third grants a 100% chance of obtaining artifacts from mid-bosses and final bosses. And the fourth allows each level up point to increase his stats by 2 instead of 1. Additionally, if he's invested in luck, this effect will apply retroactively to all previous points. Our guy is stunned. Every option is absurdly powerful. The goddess looks proud, clearly pleased by his astonishment. The critical hits, the guaranteed drops, and the double stat boosts, and he realizes that all of this is the result of his perseverance. When she asks about the other constellations, our guy calmly tells the remaining 2 that they may leave. He plans to focus entirely on his chosen goddess. The Pilgrim of Grand Space nods, saying they will meet again. The Cleaner of a Fallen Dimension, on the other hand, warns him that next time, he will attempt to take his head. Despite the tension, the goddess seems amused. She compliments him on standing firm and assures him that with her blessings, he won't have to fear what lies ahead. Shin believes that greater opportunities still await him in the future. Later, inside the final boss chamber of Dungeon 101, Shin faces a monstrous being known as the Greed Goblin Lord. The creature towers before him, wild and filled with greed. The goddess watches with concern. Just as Shin prepares to strike the final blow, the boss intercepts the attack with 2 massive axes. The creature bellows, sending a shockwave that knocks Shin backward. He steadies himself using his sword, but not before being inflicted with a status ailment, Overwhelm. Our boy has anticipated this. Though it's not as crippling as a stun, Overwhelm saps one's will to fight. Wasting no time, he activates Recovery, removing the debuff. The boss attacks again, cracking the ground, but is left confused by Shin's quick response. Though his defense skill doesn't fully immobilize enemies, it proves effective enough for a comeback, and it's time to test his luck. With Overwhelm deactivated, Shin seizes the moment. He slashes the Goblin Lord's shoulder and activates Demon Bash, stunning it for 2 seconds. He keeps track of the timer and adds another hit, refreshing the stun. As the delay effect kicks in, the stun duration increases again. Blood splatters as Shin continues his assault. The system notifies him that delays the secondary effect has a 90% chance of activation, and effects of stun is extended. Our guy is amazed that it worked for the second time too. Shin is in the middle of taking down the choking goblin swamp, and with one clean swing of his blade, he finishes it off. Right after that, he clears the dungeon completely, and his level goes up. He feels worn out, but he also earns a D rank title. He's honestly really happy it's finally over. At that point, he starts thinking to himself about how first there were those thugs chasing him, and now this dungeon. He wonders if he's pushing himself too far. Just then, the Goddess of Luck shows up while pointing out that he must be pretty lucky to have pulled off everything he did today. He starts thinking that most people would probably say it's just skill. But she says being lucky is a talent too, and she's glad she's been helping someone so fortunate. He notices that how fast she changes her attitude. She, on the other hand, thinks it's all because of her support. After that, he looks at his status screen and decides to level up his luck stat first. But once he checks, he gets even happier that it's already over 100. This matters because once any stat hits over 100, it gives a 10% boost to anything connected to it. Like, higher evasion means better chances to dodge, and better luck means more rare loot drops. Now while standing strong, he looks at the Shield of Cudness. It's a support-type gear that gives plus 20 defense. It had belonged to the goblin fighter Cudness. He figures it doesn't really matter since he's already guaranteed to get the drop thanks to the goddess. goddess. Then he starts wondering that if he keeps raising his luck stat, will that make the loot he finds even better in quality? So he walks over and picks up the shield. Right after, his mana starts sinking with it. Suddenly, the goddess of luck steps up and grabs onto him. He can't help but think that, at the very least, she might turn out to be even more annoying than a late-blooming model student. At the quest zone near Jamsil Station, a woman stands at the gate while Shin talks with her. He gets what she's trying to say, but he's got his own thoughts running through his head. She apologizes and asks him to think twice about his plan. She explains that she's seen too many dead bodies today, but Shin's already feeling frustrated. Sweat rolls down his face as he tells himself that he can't back down now. Just 2 hours earlier, he was driving down the Hanam Expressway while feeling uneasy because of the shield he had picked up, one that belonged to a goblin. He's just glad he only ate some rice and kimchi in order to absorb the shield before heading out. As he drives, he notices the warning lights on the dashboard start flashing. He's caught off guard and starts wondering if he needs to buy a new car. Then his thoughts drift to more than just the car. He knows he also needs to move soon. Sitting at an awkward level in the rankings makes him more likely to run into crime. Living in fear isn't something he wants anymore. It'd be way better for him to stay in a player-only city, where there's always watchful eyes and easy access to any artifact he might need. He figures it's time to look into secondhand gear too, something that won't drain his wallet and will help him out for now. Right now, what he needs most is money, and a lot of it. He knows that there's only one place where he can earn that kind of money. The system that came with the player era brought quests along with it, and those quests are handled by a group that is the Player Association. As long as it's under their system, he knows he can make it work. So he rushes to the quest arena, ready to go. But as he's speaking to the woman at the gate, he realizes she's not letting him in. She tells him to pick a dungeon that fits his level, and asks why he's trying to enter a level 100 zone. Still, he stays calm and sure of himself. Even though he's only level 17, he feels like stepping into a lower zone now would just waste his time. She tries again while saying she's heard that line before. She pleads with him to choose a safer area instead. In that moment, he finally gets her point. Lots of people have died because they thought they were stronger than they really were. Still, he holds his ground. Deep down, he knows the risk. But he also believes that he can handle it. While the two of them are talking, a girl suddenly shows up and asks what's going on. The lady just brushes it off like it's nothing. The girl is Kim Miso from Eden Guild, a top-tier A+ rank player. Shin looks at her and quickly figures out who she is. Kim Miso, the sniper known as the Marksman of Devastation. He remembers she's the first player to hit level 100 and earn the Marksman title. Even though her combat skills are amazing, what really makes her stand out is her background. She's the daughter of Kim Yoon-cheol, the president of Shinsung Biotechnics. Now Shin starts wondering if she's also Shin Taeri, the shadow assassin with a famous title, or even related to Cho Jinho, one of the top sword players in the nation. He thinks whether all of them are part of the same guild. Then it clicks that she's the heir of the biggest shareholder company behind Eden Guild. Basically, she's been living the player life on the highest level since day one. She then walks up and greets him. She says she hasn't seen him before, and asks why he's aiming for a level 100 quest. He simply tells her he needs money. The people standing nearby are stunned while thinking she's the one who started the conversation, and they wonder if Shin's out of his mind. They whisper that she's probably just being kind to a low-level newbie. Meanwhile, Shin hears every word they're saying. Then Kim Miso mentions the quest is going to be tough for someone like him, but he already knows that. He understands how strong the phrase, high risk, high return, really is. He isn't acting bold because he dislikes her either. He remembers clearly how he got turned down when he asked to join her team before he turned back in time. Still, he doesn't hold a grudge. Then she tells him that solo players aren't allowed in that quest, so he can't join alone. That hits him hard, and he suddenly remembers the rule about solo players not being allowed is still in place and won't be lifted for another 4 years. The lady beside them laughs out loud, and he just admits that he probably read the notice wrong. Right after that, Kim Miso surprises everyone by offering to let him join her. He's speechless, and people nearby start whispering again while wondering if she's serious. Some even start feeling jealous. Shin, on the other hand, starts thinking that what's her angle. He asks if there's a catch. She just says that she's helping a fellow player and no strings attached. He laughs a bit and says it's hard for him to trust people. She replies that there's no hidden deal. Just one thing, that if he lets her down, he better be ready to face the consequences. But if he proves her wrong, she promises to admit it and apologize. Now he gets it that she wants to test him. Her power goes way beyond just being a player. Even the clothes she wears shoot up in value. Every word she speaks ends up in dozens of news stories. He knows if she decides to trash his name after this, his whole career could be done. But he doesn't back down. He looks at her and suggests they head out right away and finds himself actually curious about what happens next. As Kim gets to the quest arena, she tells her guard to handle whatever he needs to. Right then, she notices that most of the guild members are caught up with other stuff, and she has to find new teammates to gather enough people for the quest. Coincidentally, she has a reason to team up with Shin. Because of the rules about having a minimum number of members for a quest, she ends up looking his way. When she spots him chatting with the receptionist, it's a bit of a hassle for her at that moment. She just happens to notice this guy full of confidence, and since she's not sure how he might react, she gets kind of curious. So she asks the girl what kind of quest he's trying to take on. The girl tells her it's a defense quest where they have to wipe out all the monsters. Kim's surprised he didn't pick a fetch or raid quest, but instead went with something that tough. Because of how this quest works, the only way to win is by beating every monster, which is why it usually needs 4 people, with at least one ranged damage dealer. but he's planning to go in solo. She finds that shocking and sees it as pretty much a suicide run. Meanwhile, Shin asks if she's nervous. She looks at him, kind of stunned, and he says he was worried since she wasn't saying anything. He offers to wait for more folks, maybe a tank or another ranged fighter if she thinks it's too risky. But she tells him everything's fine and decides to take on the quest with him. They're told they'll be moved to the quest zone soon. Then the girl at the counter says she hopes nothing bad happens since Kim's joining him. At the same time, a few others nearby start talking while wondering if they'll even make it. One of them doubts it, saying there's no chance a level 17 player can handle a level 100 dungeon. Still, someone points out that Kim might have something planned, since she's the youngest to ever be ranked A+. They also start talking about the new ranking system the Player Association made. Turns out it wasn't based on level anymore, since it's hard to judge strength that way. Now, ranks are decided by two things: how many dungeons someone has cleared and their overall battle instinct. Kim got her A+ rank just because of her insane battle sense. Someone asks what A+ even means, and another explains it means there are still monsters out there stronger than her. But that's not the point. What really matters now is that this guy just stepped into a dungeon with her, and everyone thinks he's seriously lucky. In the defense quest, Kim and Shin finally arrive at the area. She's thinking about how she needs to stand by what she said earlier. She plans to give it her all to support him if things get risky, though deep down she hopes he learns something from this experience. But about half an hour earlier, she had asked him what he meant, mistaking his words. He had told her not to step in unless he asked for help. Shin firmly supplies that if she just focuses on backing him up, he'd give her 5% of the reward, which he thought was a pretty good deal. She wasn't having it though. She told him she didn't agree to help because of his offer. From her view, there's no way he could pull it off alone. After all, there are at least 300 enemies, and even for her, a level 100, it's a tough challenge. She seems nervous to see his reaction, but our guy keeps his cool and tells her to just watch. So, she gives in, but adds a new condition that she gets 1% more from the cut for every monster he misses, and if he loses more than 95 of them, he gets nothing. Suddenly, a monster shows up in front of him while growling loud. They're wolves. Shin's ready for it. He apologizes to the beast, then swings his sword hard and fast. He says that he's going to take them all down himself. The wolves charge at him with speed, but he doesn't back down. Kim watches as he lands a strong hit while knocking them down quick. The wolves crash to the ground, and he handles them like it's nothing. He even comments about their death sounds, which is kind of nice to his ears. At that moment, Kim starts thinking he might not be just another overconfident player. There's no mistakes in the way he fights. His form shows off his longer reach, and the way he moves reminds her of what Jinho, a warrior in her guild, always talked about. A perfect mix of offense and defense. What impresses her more is how clean and efficient he is. He doesn't waste energy and drops several enemies with one swing. Still, she knows he's got a long way to go. There's just too many of them. And then, all of a sudden, a big wave of wolves rushes in his direction. Even Shin starts thinking these aren't monsters someone at level 17 should be able to deal with. Then all of a sudden, Kim realizes something feels off. She starts thinking that why aren't any of the monsters moving? She's shocked and wonders if they're all stunned, and if Shin is the one who used some kind of stun skill, actually referring to his Demon Bash skill. As she watches him slicing through the wolves, it hits her that it is definitely a stun technique. Anyone paying attention could tell. Even though he's playing it safe, the stun seems to last around 4 seconds. If that's true, he's got more than enough time and power to wipe out every last monster. She stares at him while trying to figure it out that who even is this guy? Meanwhile, Shin keeps landing heavy blows while treating it like it's no big deal. He stays sharp, watches every movement the wolves make, and keeps knocking them to the ground. He actually looks like he's enjoying it. Then, one wolf stands out that is the black wolf. It lets out a loud growl, and when he sees it, he realizes that he's never fought it before, but for some reason, it feels oddly familiar. Now the black wolf puts a stun and debuff effect on him. Shin starts thinking that could this be the same kind of stun he used earlier. Kim's surprised too, but thanks to her artifact, she's not affected by the stun. That's when she figures it out that the black wolf used a stun skill on him. She nearly forgot about that possibility. She was just about to doubt him, but now she figures maybe he has some kind of ability to trigger stun effects. Still, for someone his level to cancel out a stun like that, that's almost unheard of. But then somehow his system informs him that his recovery skill kicks in, and the stun effect wears off. He's back on his feet and charges at the monster. Kim watches in disbelief. His sword stance is nearly perfect. The stun duration was longer than expected, and now it looks like he can cancel debuffs too, even though he's only level 17. The black wolf charges at him again while growling louder this time. Our dude doesn't flinch and he stands his ground, totally calm. Kim's thoughts start to piece together. It actually makes sense now. He should have been frozen by the stun, but he's not. Suddenly, the black wolf lunges again. For a second, there's a bit of panic. Then, with one last powerful strike, Shin takes it down. The moment feels unreal, like he was the one stunned, but somehow still delivered the final blow. After that, he looks at himself, notices how dirty he got, and thinks maybe it's time to just enjoy this. Watching all of this unfold, Kim can't stop thinking that just who exactly is Shin. Now in this defense quest, Shin beats all the wolf-type monsters. He takes down 299 of them, just one short of the 300 target. He levels up and feels good while rushing through each level with ease. He also earns the D-rank title No Fear, which lets him ignore any negative effects from these wolf-like creatures. At this point, he starts thinking that Kim might finally trust his skills. She watches him, clearly impressed but still a bit cold. He knows that he has to keep putting on a show, so he gets ready for the final round. Then a huge wolf appears in front of him. It's the final boss, the Full Moon Wolf Lord. He steps forward with a strong attack while remembering that random strikes seem to work best against this boss. The wolf growls again, but he stays focused. He knows that after 30 years of his past life, he knows every move the boss makest. Still, he feels sorry for having to hit it. He lands a heavy blow with his sword and tries to use his Demon Bash skill. But unfortunately, the boss resists it. His Demon Bash doesn't go through. That's when he realizes that the wolf's strength comes from being a level 100 boss. Meanwhile, Kim watches him closely. She notes that he has a way to avoid the stun effect, and she's surprised at how easily he swings that huge sword like it weighs nothing. Back in the fight, he keeps attacking the boss with full energy. The wolf dodges many of his strikes. Then suddenly the wolf lets out a loud growl. Without missing a beat, he goes in for one last powerful hit with his sword. The wolf manages to dodge the strike, but Shin is already familiar with the Wolf Lord's unpredictable move pattern. He realizes that he knows all its tactics. Meanwhile, Kim starts to understand something deeper, that the most annoying thing about Shin is his constant need to prove his strength to her. He smirks, which makes Kim wonder who he really is. As the fight continues, Shin notices the battle is dragging on longer than he expected. He's running out of tricks to show off, and he's thinking that the wolf should be worn out any second now. But then the wolf charges at him again, and Shin wonders why it's still so full of energy. He realizes that at the rate they're going, he might collapse before the wolf does, since his health stats are running low. He starts to feel tensed as the wolf seems determined to finish him off. But fortunately, Shin soon catches on to the wolf's attack pattern. The wolf uses strong strikes as bait while hoping to lure him into a counter, then follows up with a fierce attack. Shin stands tall, holding his sword, and recognizes the signature move of the Wolf Lord, a tactic that's taken down countless players before him. He hadn't seen it in action yet, but now he knows it's coming. The wolf lets out a loud roar, and Shin rushes in to strike. But just as he does, the wolf growls again. Kim watches in shock as the wolf lands a heavy blow on Shin while causing him to fall. She feels disappointed, thinking to herself that she's an idiot. Even though he's shown incredible strength, she let her guard down, and now he's the one suffering because of it. She feels deeply sorry for him. Then, something unexpected happens. A light flashes in front of her eyes, and with that, the absorbed shield of Cudness shatters into ashes, lost forever. Shin gains a special effect that is Sacrifice. He feels a surge of happiness as he realizes it grants him a conditional healing skill, still useful even after absorbing the shield. Now he has to decide which part of his body to apply the healing to. He knows it's a very specific choice, and he must pick from 16 different body parts. Normally, choosing the rear side would be safer, but since the back is divided into 4 parts, it's not efficient. He figures it makes more sense to pick his front, and with that decision, everything works out. It was thanks to the effect of Sacrifice, Shin regains his full health. He realizes that if he had missed by even a little, he would have died. But instead, he tells the wolf that he didn't expect to handle both of his problems at once, and then his Demon Bash skill activates at level 1. Shin isn't sure if he's lucky or unlucky, but he can't believe that cutting off the wolf's right arm actually breaks through its resistance. He decides to go for it while grabbing his sword and getting ready to test his luck. He notices that his stun technique only works on the 3rd attempt, but he figures that's good enough. Just then, Kim arrives. Shin greets her while saying she's finally here. She replies while telling him he could have mentioned that he had a healing skill, because she honestly thought he was done for. Then, she asks him if he's living a second life or something while wondering how he knows all the Wolf Lord's attack patterns. She says she's met countless players, but Shin is the first to truly confuse her. She tries to say something which she feels, but our guy turns to her and asks her to complete her sentence. She then asks him, almost pressuring him, like he's already a ranker. Shin's caught off guard by that. He actually thought she was going to say it feels like he's someone who's regressed. But then he figures that a regular player probably wouldn't even think that deep. She follows up while asking if he's planning to finish the boss. So he steps up in front of the Wolf Lord and without hesitation takes him down. After the kill, he earns a C-rank title and unlocks a new skill called Face Off. The skill kicks in when the target is completely alone, no backup within 5 meters, and it boosts all of his stats by 20%. Now Shin wonders if his first C-rank title is actually meant for solo fights. He's pretty pleased with it. Kim notices and points out that it looks like he got his title. He's surprised and asks if she's cleared this stage alone before. She admits she has, but also confesses that it was only possible because of her artifact. Shin responds while saying that getting the right artifact still takes skill. She thanks him for the compliment, though she adds that her item cost over 200 billion won, and it's not really fair to compare herself to someone using a regular sword. But then while brushing that aside, she suggests he test out his new title. Our boy doesn't get it at first, but then Face Off activates. Kim's standing alone now, within the 5-meter range, and no one else is nearby. However, the moment Shin says something, the effect deactivates. She laughs it off and says she needs to head out first to call her porters so they can collect all the loot. Shin thanks her again. He figures it makes sense that since dropped loot and monster parts are part of the quest rewards, so bringing in porters is just the smart move. And seeing how he handled most of the battle, he figures that he's made a solid impression on her. Before she leaves, she tells him one last thing, that she's giving up her 5% share of the quest reward. That stuns Shin. He tells her it doesn't feel fair, but she brushes it off, saying she'll be fine and doesn't want him to refuse. She believes they'll have more chances to work together and asks him to think of it as her investing in him. Our dude feels like he really can't let his guard down around her. Still, he decides to finally check out the long-awaited reward that is the Blue Moon Stone. The moment he sees it, he lights up. He's thrilled that he finally got his hands on a platinum rank artifact. In his mind, this thing's worth at least $1 billion, and he sees it as something seriously valuable. With this, he realizes he can probably afford an apartment in Seoul now. Then, the Goddess of Luck tries to get some credit while asking if he believes in her now after tasting success like this. But he doesn't give in. He thinks it's his own luck that brought him here, not hers. Just then, the one with the torn lips complains about how unfair his luck is. Soon after, Shin finds out that the player system has actually suggested kicking the Goddess of Luck out. She puts in a request to the constellations linked to the system while asking them to vote. While the voting is going on, there's also a decision made that the one with ripped lips can no longer act as a constellation. Meanwhile, Shin turns his attention back to the artifact. Since it's platinum rank, he figures he'll be able to absorb about 40% of its stats. While he's staring at the Blue Moon Stone, he notices its special effect, something called the Lingering Effect, which boosts health recovery and regeneration 5 times over. In short, under a full moon, he's basically untouchable when it comes to fighting dogs. Then, the mana sinking between him and the artifact kicks off. In the quest lobby, he now stands at full power. As he steps forward, a crowd gathers in front of him while murmuring about whether he's really Sang-hyun, the guy who cleared a level 100 dungeon solo. Some are skeptical, but others say there's no reason Kim would lie about it. Kim points out that no one in their right mind would let a level 17 player attempt a level 100 quest, and says she would have stopped him if she could. She adds that everyone gave it their all in that run. Then she nudges someone to take a better look at Sang-hyun. That's when Shin remembers the worker. He feels a bit guilty about forgetting her. But just then, someone calls out to him. A guy introduces himself as Yoon Ju-han, the recruitment team leader from the Guardian Guild. He says Shin looks like a strong player and offers him a spot in their guild while promising the best treatment. But Kim steps in and tells them Shin has something to discuss with her, politely asking them to excuse them. People around start guessing if the Eden Guild is trying to scout him. Shin figures she pulled him out of that situation, but wonders what she's really planning. As they walk away, Shin hears a notification from his phone. He just got the reward deposit. Kim Miso checks in with him and asks if the quest payout came through. He's surprised it came so quickly. She credits the A-rank porters and mentions her own influence helped too. He thanks her for handling everything. He's just received 500 million won. But then, the mood shifts as they switch to secret mode. Shin starts to feel uneasy while sensing there's more behind all this kindness. And just like he thought, she gets straight to the point that she wants him to join the Eden Guild. When Kim tells him to join the Eden Guild, he goes quiet. He then comments that it feels more like she is just thinking it over with a calm kind of confidence. She answers that there's a reason her guild is called Eden, and that he won't regret it. At that moment, he thinks to himself that he'd be lying if he said he didn't see this coming. Before he turned back time, he was just a regular member of a small-time guild. It wasn't anything fancy, but that group gave him a feeling of comfort. It was a small guild that accepted a player like him, someone without skill, without a place to go. Honestly, it felt warm and safe. At least until that one incident happened in which he lost his comrades. Now, with the way he's growing, even if a guild has great support, it might end up holding him back. So for now, going solo seems like the best way to grow stronger. He turns her down politely. She picks up on it right away and guesses he's thinking of starting a solo guild. She really is sharp. Then she casually adds that she is the daughter of a big company's chairman after all. She tells him that with the kind of skills he has, it wasn't even hard to figure out. She also points out that it's important she's the only one who knows about it right now. That's when he realizes that she already knew he'd go solo. Yet she still laid everything out honestly, showed real interest, and even built a deal that works for both of them. He can't help but think she's seriously sharp when it comes to negotiating. Later, he heads over to Player Town C near Jamsil Station, where he meets a lady. Just like they talked about, she brings up the 100 million won deposit and 5 million won rent per month. He jokes that the way she says it with a smile makes it sound simple, but it still feels kind of intense. She just laughs and answers that he got a good deal. Lots of people wanted to see the place. After that, she says goodbye and leaves. He tells her to take care, and then watches her go while thinking how fast it all happened. He wonders if maybe this luck is also because of the Goddess of Fortune. Now standing in the new apartment, he looks out the window while taking it all in. Even though not much time has passed, so much has changed. His sudden return to the past, the confusion, and everything shifting so fast, it all felt like a blur. He spent days just trying to figure things out. Even without clear answers, he wasn't sure what to do next. But then, something in him shifted. There was this rush, this energy running through his body, even though he hadn't done anything yet. It felt like youth, and that feeling, that fire didn't let him stay still. That's when he promised himself that this time, he'd live differently. Not in a sad, helpless way like before. And just like that, chances to grow started showing up one after another. While they're riding in the car, Kim picks up a call and starts chatting. She is talking to some reporter Park Jong-min while stating that he's as fast as always when it comes to news. Hearing that, he figures she must be talking to Park from Player magazine. On the other end, the reporter brings up that he heard Shin is with her in a quest zone. He confirms that it's true and starts talking about the recent players he's seen. But before he goes too far, Kim cuts in while asking him to get to the point. Soon after, they reach their stop. Shin thanks her for the ride, but she tells him to hang on a bit. She explains that they're planning to check out an unconfirmed gate soon. It's a 4-person open team for players under level 120. Shin feels a wave of excitement that this is finally his shot at entering a gate. But she teases him, while pointing out how quickly he jumped in after turning down their guild offer so coldly. He knows exactly why he's hyped. Unlike regular dungeons, which always have fixed entrances, exits, traps, and monster patterns, gates are unpredictable. The paths shift during raids, monsters can change mid-run, and with more risk comes better rewards. That's just how the player world works. And with unconfirmed gates, there's a special first-time bonus that you're guaranteed a high-ranked artifact. It also clicks for him that Kim probably has experience with these kinds of gates. There's no way she could have gotten that artifact which ignores the Black Wolf's stun effect at her level otherwise. Before leaving, she says she'll reach out when more info comes in, and that they'll likely be talking a lot going forward. Then she hands over her phone and tells him to save his number. Shin stares at his screen, a bit lost. She notices and quickly says she meant to switch the screen so he could type. It's just that her head's a bit all over the place. He stays quiet, just watching her. She really does seem like she's juggling something. But then again, what kind of player isn't dealing with something these days? Shin starts thinking to himself that he also has a past he can never really talk about. If anyone finds out that he turned back time, who knows what kind of trouble that might bring. He also wonders what they are doing now. Then, the late bloomer model student comes to mind, and he remembers how they spent years together. A part of him just wishes he could at least see their faces again. Meanwhile, over in the VIP room of the Eden Guild, Jo Jinho, who's a level 700 player, sits comfortably and tries to start a casual chat with Kim. He says it's been a while and thought they could catch up over coffee or something, but notices she's glued to her phone while waiting for a message. She replies that she's texting Shin that they're getting ready to dive into a gate together. That catches Jo off guard, and he asks if she's seriously into him. She brushes it off and says it's nothing like that, but Jo isn't convinced. He remembers Shin's the one who can keep a stun going even longer than him. And not only that, he even turned down Kim's guild offer. Kim just shrugs and tells him he should worry more about himself because Shin's sword skills were seriously impressive. Jo lets out a laugh while finding it all a bit much. He jokes that no matter what, comparing that guy to him is kind of over the top. At Jamsil Training Ground 4-3, Shin gets a call from Kim. He thanks her for calling. She asks if he's free to chat since she wants to bring up the recent gate that popped up. He finds it fast but says he's got time. She lets him know there's some news about an unconfirmed gate close to Chuni Station on line 7, around 500 meters northwest. She adds that all the areas up to the middle checkpoint have already been checked, and she's just sent him the info about the deeper zones. He tells her to hold on while he checks it out. She tells him to take his time. While going over the details, he sees the gate info and thinks to himself how crazy it is that he's already getting a chance to use his new skill this soon. He tells her he saw everything and thanks her for the heads up. She says she just heard about it and will ring him again soon. Meanwhile, Yoon stands nearby and seems annoyed. He can't believe Shin dragged him all the way out there just while he himself attends the calls. Shin apologizes while calling him captain. Yoon asks him not to call him anymore and jokes that maybe he's famous now. But our guy tries to brush it off while saying he's far from being a celebrity. Yoon guesses from Shin's reaction that he hasn't checked his phone yet. When Shin asks what he's talking about, Yoon tells him to see it for himself. He's on the front page of Player magazine. Shocked, Shin pulls out his phone. He didn't expect to end up in the spotlight and wonders why they didn't tell him beforehand. Yoon teases him while asking if everyone's already blowing up his phone. Shin says it's not that serious yet and decides to focus on what's in front of him. He'll handle the magazine thing later. Then, Yoon hands over a bag while saying it's what Shin asked for. Shin thanks him, but Yoon makes it clear that it's not a gift. It's not free. He supplies that those are just his old artifacts and wonders why Shin wants them instead of buying new ones. Our guy replies with a smile that he's just into the history of things, or maybe he's trying to carry on Yoon's legacy. Yoon calls him out while asking if that's really his excuse. Still grinning, Shin says it's just some superstition he believes in. But deep down, he's actually thinking about how old, unused artifacts usually absorb energy way better. Suddenly, a girl shows up while saying she's late because of parking trouble. She's there for the appraisal. Our boy doesn't recognize her, but Yoon steps in and explains that she's the appraiser he brought in to make sure their trade goes fairly for both sides. He laughs as he states it. The girl finishes the artifact check, clearly tired from it. Then she tells them the appraisal's done. It looks like the trade is fair for both of them now. But just before closing the deal, Yoon asks Shin to check out his sword skills. Shin nervously replies that he can't really help because he's not good enough to give advice yet. But Yoon cuts him off while telling him to stop being so humble. After all they've been through together, Yoon knows Shin's way ahead of him now. He also responds that he's not too proud to take advice when it's needed. That makes Shin a bit uneasy as he really didn't want to get pulled into something like this. Fear creeps in for a moment. Still, he thinks it would be rude to ignore someone who's just trying to improve. So he tells Yoon to forget he's even there and just go all out. Yoon likes that. Then, our boy looks over at the appraiser and tells her she might want to step back. She agrees and moves behind him. Right after that, Yoon swings his sword with a powerful strike. Shin is surprised because Yoon's improved a lot since their last dungeon run. It's clear that he's been putting in the work. As Yoon keeps showing his sword skills, our guy is impressed. His form is sharp, and there's real power behind each move. Yoon explains that he's still got more to show. That's when Shin notices something and asks if there's a problem with Yoon's left arm. Yoon is clearly taken aback and asks how Shin figured that out. Our boy explains that whenever Yoon strikes with his right hand, he opens up his left shoulder too fast. It feels like he's protecting it too much. If it's not that, then what is it? Yoon admits Shin is right and explains that he got trauma when it comes to his left side. Most of his injuries during training and dungeon fights are from that side. Even though he knows it's a weak point, he just can't fix it. Shin tells him that it can be fixed while leaving Yoon stunned. He explains that trauma like that is easier to beat than people think. Instead of hiding your flaws, one has got to find strength in them from your grip to your breathing. He admits that making changes will be tough at first, but it'll help in the long run. He suggests adding more pressure with one finger on the blade. Yoon tries but responds that it's not that easy because it even hurts. Shin tells him to hang on a bit longer. Yoon grits his teeth, says it still hurts but he can feel something improving. Our guy promises it'll only get better from here. While all this is going on, the appraiser just stands there thinking these two are seriously something else. Then, Shin keeps adjusting Yoon's grip while showing him different ways to hold the sword. Yoon struggles with it, and the appraiser is left totally puzzled while wondering what kind of training session she's even watching. After teaching Captain Yoon, our dude is on his way. He's happy to have made a deal with Yoon, even if it costs him 400 million won. He is sure that the benefit he's going to gain from these artifacts will be worth the money. Not only that, Yoon seems quite satisfied with the sword skills lesson, but his expression turns nervous when he remembers the strange look on the appraiser's face during their training. He assumes she must just be tired. He's excited to absorb those artifacts to find out what kind of skill he'll gain from them. On top of that, he can't wait for the next gate to appear so he can use his skill as well. To kill time, he decides to call Kim. Suddenly, his eyes widen, and he slams the brake pedal as he sees a person in front of his car. He immediately apologizes, clearly concerned about the person's well-being. The person was in his blind spot, so he didn't notice him. However, this person has a different agenda as he claims he's been waiting for our boy. He looks down on Shin and threatens him to get out of the car. Shin has no idea what this guy wants. His companion scoffs while saying that idiots like our boy always react the same way. This bulky man has another idea as he activates his firepower while threatening Shin. If Shin doesn't get out of the car, he says, he'll burn him along with it. Suddenly, Shin remembers who these people are. They're streamer players Choi Young-chul and his lackey, Cho Seong-ho, from the Utopia Guild. These are the kind of players who usually pick on newbies or weaker players, streaming their humiliation for views. Young-chul stars in the videos while Cho handles the camera. Due to the extreme nature of their content, they've gathered a loyal following who eagerly watches their cruel stunts. However, not too long ago, they crossed a line, committing a serious crime that led to life sentences in prison. Cho comments on how Shin isn't moving at all. On the other hand, our boy is actually relieved to realize that these guys are just pathetic bullies, exactly the kind he can deal with easily. Still, both Young-chul and Cho are confident in their victory. After all, Young-chul is a level 100 B rank player, and Cho is level 75 C rank, both clearly above Shin in terms of level. With a tired sigh, Shin pulls out his sword, while thinking about his initial plan, which is to test out his power. But that doesn't mean he wants to waste it on someone as pathetic as these two. He doesn't even consider them worthy opponents. Still, people like them always have a way of finding him, so he doesn't have much of a Young-chul. He'll just deal with them quickly. Finally, Shin steps out of his car and asks what their problem is. Young-chul lies while claiming that he's part of the security force in Player Town. He says that he's received complaints and is here to handle them. He tells Shin to calm down and cooperate. Narrowing his eyes, Young-chul accuses Shin of pissing people off just by owning this car. Then, without warning, he kicks the car with full force, breaking its door. Shin is momentarily stunned. Young-chul threatens him, either take his stuff and leave or watch his car be reduced to scrap. Nearby, some onlookers recognize the pathetic streamers trying to act tough. But more importantly, they also recognize Shin from Player Magazine. They wonder whether he is the one who went to the quest area with Kim. As the crowd tries to recall his name, Young-chul and Cho start whispering about Shin's power level. They've heard rumors. Apparently, our guy cleared a level 100 quest all on his own. Looking at Shin's youthful face, Young-chul refuses to believe he's strong enough to clear a level 100 quest. However, Cho counters, while reminding him that Kim was with Shin, and she's not the type to give credit to some random newbie without a solid reason. At that, Young-chul laughs. He suddenly gets an idea for his next video. He instructs his lackey to get the camera ready and decides to title the video, "Let's Teach a Newbie Kim Miso Carried a Lesson." Cho eagerly readies the camera, his face lit with excitement. Young-chul then lures Shin into a one-on-one sparring match, pretending to show him mercy. He offers a deal. If Shin loses, he must leave Player Town. But if he wins, Young-chul and Cho will stay far away from him. On the other side, Shin's face darkens as his eyes remain fixed on his damaged car. He responds calmly at first, saying he agrees to the deal, which makes Young-chul grin and call him a real man. But in the next moment, Shin's expression shifts. his fury bubbling to the surface. He warns them to add 500 million won to the deal and stakes his own wrist on it. Then he adds coldly that if Youngchul is scared, he's free to back out. Youngchul grows visibly irritated at Shin's bold demand. Before he can respond, Cho interrupts with a tense expression. Turning to his lackey with annoyance, Youngchul asks what's going on. Cho hesitantly informs him that the live chat is exploding. Viewers are cheering for him to accept Shin's wager and add the 500 million won to the deal. Shin calmly asks if Youngchul is going to do it, or if he's just scared. Youngchul hesitates. The stakes are high. This could get his video demonetized due to violence and mature content. But on the other hand, it's also a tempting chance to vent his frustration and rake in massive viewership. Soon, they find themselves standing in front of a growing crowd at Playertown's building's C Plaza. Onlookers gather, confused about what's happening. Some recognize Youngchul and his lackey and mutter that they're at it again, targeting newbies. One boy tries to impress a girl, but she firmly reminds him that she has a boyfriend. Meanwhile, Shin and Youngchul enter training mode. The system activates the barrier effect to prevent real-world damage. Youngchul smirks, while reminding Shin about the terms of their deal. The winner takes 500 million won and breaks the loser's wrist. He assures Shin that he'll keep his word, then, with a mocking grin, warns him that it's still not too late to back out, so he won't have to beg for mercy later. Cho confirms that the training mode is active, and both participants are free to begin. Youngchul arrogantly warns that he doesn't play around, but he doesn't get to finish. Shin, already in motion, leaps into the air with his sword glowing with a powerful aura. His eyes blaze as he growls that he doesn't play around either, and if he begs for mercy later, he won't be in the mood to forgive. Meanwhile, the match is being broadcast live, and somewhere else, Kim watches the screen, her expression stunned. Kim watches the live battle stream, visibly startled, and mutters in disbelief while trying to grasp what is unfolding. She observes closely and begins to suspect that Shin's opponent resembles Youngchul from the Utopia Guild. Though Youngchul holds a B-rank status, she's heard whispers about his reckless behavior, rumored to stem from the fact that his uncle leads the guild. Still, she wonders why someone like him is facing off against Shin in this setting. Just then, her sister, Shin Taeri, arrives and notices her tense expression. Curious, she questions if something unusual is happening. As she glances at the screen, her attention shifts, and she recognizes the player being shown. She recalls that Shin is the one her sister constantly tries to recruit. Kim confirms his identity as Shin Sang-hyun, and admits that she's puzzled about why he's appearing on such a low-grade livestream. Her sister, however, comments on the impressive precision in Shin's movements. Meanwhile, the ongoing match between Youngchul and Shin intensifies. Youngchul hurls insults while accusing Shin of dishonesty and mocking him with crude language. In response, our boy, while clutching his blade, launches a powerful strike at Youngchul. He charges toward his opponent with fierce intent, while Youngchul maintains a solid stance and refusing to retreat. Shin delivers another forceful attack while drawing the attention and admiration of the audience watching the broadcast. At last, Shin lands a decisive blow. He silently reflects that, for the first time since he turned back time, his body finally responds exactly as he wishes. His technique flows naturally while showing his growth. Earlier, around 3 hours before the confrontation, Shin thanks the appraiser for completing the deal swiftly. She responds humbly while noting that both parties contributed equally. Daekyung chuckles and proposes they go out for a drink while saying he'll cover the cost, and they can choose any place they like. However, Shin politely declines while explaining he already has other plans. Daekyung reacts with irritation while misinterpreting Shin's refusal. He questions whether he might have asked for too much and even offers to return part of the deal. Still, Shin insists that it's simply a scheduling issue and repeats his apology. Accepting this explanation, Daekyung shrugs it off while suggesting he and the appraiser go out instead. But suddenly, the appraiser remembers an important event she cannot miss. She apologizes quickly and dashes away while saying the event means more to her than drinking. Daekyung tries to stop her, but she disappears. Later, Shin sits quietly on a bench while holding a reward he earned from a previous wager. It's a bronze rank item and he carefully observes it. The initial absorption rate is measured at 10%, but he recalls that extended time invested in using the item boosts the rate. With that in mind, the final absorption has now risen to 90%. Shin is genuinely astonished by this result. Soon after, the goddess of luck approaches Shin and remarks that it's due to her favor that he's able to enjoy such extraordinary advantages. Our dude reflects that under normal conditions, he would only be able to extract a fraction, around 1/10 of the item's original attributes. He realizes that how much of a difference it makes when one truly utilizes their equipment. Shifting the subject, he brings up a question that has been on his mind. Since she holds fame similar to a constellation, he wonders if she has ever encountered one known as the late bloomer model student. However, the goddess begins to complain while feeling neglected, and insists he should be paying attention to her instead of other celestial beings. Though she rebukes him, Shin calmly clarifies that it's not about ignoring her. That particular constellation holds deep meaning for him, but he understands why she might feel upset. With his head lowered, he quietly accepts her frustration. Eventually, the goddess grants him permission to raise his head again. She mentions that she'll try to gather information about the constellation since she's feeling generous today. Grateful, Shin expresses his appreciation. Now that the matter is resolved, he decides it's time to enjoy a well-deserved meal. Holding the artifact tightly in his grip, he initiates the mana synchronization process with 5 different artifacts. As the energy flows, he prepares to dine and enhance his physical capabilities. The dishes that manifest are among the top 5 favorite meals among men while leaving him both stunned and thrilled. Despite the fact that these artifacts were once used by an older warrior, the food they generate appeals even to someone younger like him. To his surprise, he discovers that all the artifacts possess an impressive absorption rate of 90%. He begins to wonder just how powerful he'll become after consuming everything on the table. The potential outcome seems unimaginable. Soon, the face-off title activates. He becomes aware that no other person is within a 5-meter range of the marked target except for himself. As the skill's effect takes hold, Youngchul becomes the isolated opponent. Shin evaluates the ability's influence and concludes that its impact feels rather underwhelming. During their ongoing clash, Shin stands poised with his weapon, fully prepared to eliminate his rival. From afar, Kim Miso quietly urges him to stay cautious, while her sister reassures her, confident that he will likely evade any danger. As he raises his blade, Shin reminds himself that both the 500 million wager and Youngchul's wrist belong to him. Focusing intently on his own fluid movement and circulating energy, Shin becomes even more committed to winning the gamble. However, it seems like Youngchul and his lackey have set a trap, and our boy walks right into it. The moment Shin sets foot on the hidden trigger, the trap activates, locking him in place. Youngchul grins wickedly, thinking the match is already over. He throws up a smug middle finger toward Shin and declares his victory. Youngchul successfully freezes Shin with his ability, forced freezing, locking him in one place as Shin watches the ice crawl around him, while caging him. On the other hand, Kim and Tyree are taken aback by Youngchul's move, but Kim already has an idea of our boy's power and chuckles at her own comment. She confidently tells Terry not to underestimate her skill of reading people's abilities, pointing out that Shin is skilled in status ailment removal. Then she challenges her sister to look closely at the gem she has discovered in our boy while studying the screen. But her sentence cuts off when she realizes that the igloo Youngchul created is empty. Meanwhile, the bulky villain also wonders where our boy has gone, because he is certain that his freezing skill is active and that there is no chance for someone like Shin to escape it unless he has ailment removal skill. Unfortunately for this pompous player, our boy does possess that skill. Shin suddenly leaps into the air behind Youngchul, his sword ready to strike. The next moment, Shin jumps on his opponent, the tip of his sword resting on Youngchul's back. However, Youngchul is sharp enough to activate training mode, saving himself from the damage of Shin's blade. The crowd of commentators buzzes with different opinions, until one guesses correctly that Shin must have used status ailment removal to overcome Youngchul's skill. Suddenly, a particular comment catches the eye of the blonde lackey when another follower remarks how Shin looks different from before, as he too notices a change in Shin's aura. They have no idea what kind of change Shin has suddenly undergone. Terry, however, does. She informs her sister that Shin might have awakened a new skill, which could either be a transcendent skill or a psychedelic skill. But looking at Shin's black eyes, she guesses it is psychedelic. This kind of skill is powerful, but comes with a heavy drawback as it causes extreme exhaustion whenever the user takes damage. She then comments on the confidence in Shin's declaration to overcome his enemy without suffering any injury in return. Kim, however, does not agree with her. She points out that during their time in the dungeon, Shin never bothered to use this skill. At that, Terry analyzes two possibilities. First, he might not have needed it back then. The second possibility startles Kim as her sister reveals that Shin might have only just awakened this skill recently. Meanwhile, the appraiser girl is checking the artifacts Shin brought in when the crimson meditation bracelet catches her eyes, because it has already been tested for its hidden skill. This bracelet carries the psychedelic skill. She nervously thinks there is only a low chance for Shin to manifest this bracelet's hidden ability. If he has absorbed this skill within such a short amount of time, it means he must at least have the blessing of the goddess of luck. Unbeknownst to her, our guy really does have that blessing, as he has absorbed the psychedelic skill. This skill can push him into an awakened state and allow him to recover his HP for 100 seconds. His other abilities will also receive a boost after awakening this skill, but the downside is severe exhaustion if he takes any damage. At that moment, with an evil aura in his eyes, he asks his opponent whether they should have a rematch, since Youngchul still has his training mode. But Youngchul, frustrated by his humiliating defeat, hurls profanities at him. He has underestimated Shin, and now he decides to take things seriously instead of treating him as a rookie. For his next tactic, the villain decides to put distance between them. After doing this, he grows frustrated with his blonde lackey for suggesting this match in the first place, since he had no idea how strong Shin would turn out to be. The said lackey avoids eye contact with his boss, while Youngchul, beyond furious, cursing him mentally, only to be interrupted by the strong grip of our boy on his face. Shin slams his head into the ground, the floor cracking under their force, while taunting him that the only thing saving Youngchul is his training mode. Desperate, Youngchul tells him he will keep his word, admit defeat, and transfer the reward money into his account. But Shin isn't done yet. Now that the match is over, he is in the mood for revenge. Youngchul, startled, wonders what kind of revenge this crazy boy is talking about. Meanwhile, Shin remembers 3 days ago, when a mechanic like a hopeless doctor declared that although his car was fine for now, it only had a few days left in its life. It would be better for Shin to replace it. Shin, however, grew tearful at the news, because he has shared so many rides and memories with it. Now because of this, Shin declares that he is taking revenge for ending the life of his car. Youngchul apologizes for his sin, but Shin doesn't listen and gets ready to punch him straight to hell. Poor Youngchul is so terrified that he wets his pants, which disgusts and shocks not only the spectators, but also his followers, leaving them in disbelief at what just happened. On the other side, people complain about the stench Youngchul's mess is causing. Cho Sung-ho is also worried about his next course of action. Besides their MeTube channel, they are ruined after messing with our boy. To make the poor sidekick's problems worse, the manager of Utopia Guild, Moon Baekhyun, shows up, and he clearly doesn't look happy with the situation. He decides they will sort out who to blame for this mess later. For now, his focus is on Shin, who is clearly skilled enough to defeat someone like Youngchul, despite being a newbie himself. Wanting to check Shin's skills personally, he approaches him under the pretense of goodwill. He expresses that he comes here for damage control and wants to talk with him about compensation. Before agreeing, Shin asks Moon to introduce himself. For a moment, Moon judges his attitude as arrogance, but then he stops as he realizes this must be the confidence that comes from the kind of skill and abilities someone like Shin possesses. To earn Shin's favor, he has no choice but to introduce himself with an apology. He even asks how much compensation Shin needs for damage control, while thinking about how this can help him build a positive relationship with our boy and eventually recruit him. But Moon's confident thoughts falter when Shin nonchalantly asks him to transfer 2 billion won into his account. Shin, while initially planning to ask for 500 million won, increases the amount since Youngchul has also caused him considerable mental trauma. Now realizing the sum is huge but still willing to pay, Moon offers to settle it in installments. After that incident, our boy seems to become quite famous. A number of reporters gather in front of his house, most of them wanting to know about his relationship with Kim or the Eden Guild. Frustrated, he throws them out, but they remain persistent. With a sigh, he shuts them out of his apartment, wondering why they are so interested in his dating life. He already has enough on his plate and has no interest in dating right now. Looking at his new clothes, he is far more eager to get ready for his next adventure. He is also notified by Kim that the gate raid she suggested days ago is finally happening today. For this gate, Shin has been preparing specifically for a week. Now that the appraiser has brought him more artifacts, he has made quite a lot of progress in the meantime. Checking his screen, he is more than satisfied with the results. His skills, like Demon Bash and dual wielding, have also leveled up. Now he has a better chance at victory, especially since he has earned the title of Overwhelming Power, which allows his skill to hold for 2.6 seconds. On top of that, his delay skill can now last up to 5 seconds. Not only this, he has awakened several new skills as well, such as warrior level blade wielding training and full charging. The later will help him with energy release. He feels satisfied to have obtained all of these, which are more than enough to guarantee his success for this gate raid. His thoughts then wander back to his last battles, when he didn't have this level of skills, which held him back, especially in his fight against the Wolf Lord. Even with Youngchul, when he had used the freezing skill against him, Shin knew he would have been done for if his opponents had been even slightly stronger than they already were. Now he understands that he needs to lock in as soon as possible in order to avoid history repeating itself, no matter how much progress he has made. He remembers the time when the year 2040 will come, when the great server breakdown happens and he loses everyone he holds dear. He is determined not to let history repeat itself. Now he needs to follow the path of his hero and grow stronger like him in order to achieve his goal. His thoughts are interrupted by the ring of his phone. He receives the call and is startled to know that it's Park Jung-min, who is reminding him about the interview they had decided to hold today. It seems our guy has already forgotten about it. He immediately answers, and the reporter asks whether he is free. He agrees and confirms that they are going to meet at a cafe for this interview. Now he realizes he is screwed, as he has only 15 minutes to reach his destination for the interview, not to mention the gate raid waiting for him in the evening. The other problem is the horde of reporters waiting for him like vultures. To tackle this, Shin activates his psychedelic skill to get rid of them and threatens them to stay away. Meanwhile, Park is waiting for him and spots Shin arriving on time. Noticing him, he welcomes him while informing that he has already ordered coffee for both. Finally, up close, he nervously compliments Shin on his condition, assuming he must be coming straight from a dungeon. Poor Shin can't even tell reporter Park that getting here was more dangerous than clearing a dungeon. Anyway, he apologizes for his tardiness and settles down. Park brushes off his concern and gets straight to the point, saying he wants to know about Shin's recent events within the quest area. He also notes that Shin seems to be going through a lot lately. Shin tries to brush it off, saying it's just a small matter. Insistently, Park points out Shin's recent and sudden popularity among players. Nowadays, people are changing their perspective, while saying that experience and level have nothing to do with the new system. But they can't deny the fact that Shin has earned the title of Super Newbie thanks to his talent despite his low level. Shin still tries to downplay the situation, but Park points out that this is exactly why so many guilds are trying to recruit him. Shin agrees, admitting that he has received plenty of cold calls. Park chuckles and asks whether he wants to know about Eden Guild or the other guilds to weigh his options. Not to mention that he isn't even including foreign guilds in this list. This catches our boy off guard. Park, however, continues, revealing the latest information he has. 5 foreign guilds have already gone through an official identity check on Shin. Usually, these are the guilds that recruit people in their early stages to gain an advantage, but this is the first time they are interested in a total newbie like him. So he cautions Shin to keep his guard up during this time, as people might already have their eyes on him. Later, our boy is walking through the back alleys of Chunui Station, on his way to his destination for the gate appearance. Meanwhile, his mind is occupied with the new information Park has given him. He only wants to be affiliated with one guild, but now he wonders about these foreign guilds, which might be on a completely different level. Still, he can't bring himself to fully believe in them because of the bitterness from his screwed up past life. His thoughts are suddenly broken by the voice of Kim. She intends to introduce her sister to him just as they have time before gate appearance, but he is startled to see her. Kim, full of enthusiasm, introduces Terry to him, who also happens to be her guildmate. She suggests they settle down in a nearby cafe in the meantime, but Terry beats her to it by offering Shin her hand and introducing herself. He introduces himself in return with a nervous smile. Terry is not someone he could possibly not know. She carries the title of Shadow Assassin, thanks to her deadly abilities, and as one of the top players in Korea, she is also a major reason her guild, Eden, has soared so high in the rankings. Shin apologizes to his past self, because this time, he has been lucky enough to meet such high-ranking players in his life. Then suddenly Terry asks a favor from him. Shin is taken aback that someone like her would want something from him. He hesitantly answers that he will do it if it is within his power. Then she asks him to have a fight with her. Kim, however, is not happy with her demand and asks her to take it back. But Terry, unfazed, reminds her that she already told her on their way here that she would personally test Shin to see whether he is worthy of being part of their guild or not. It is clear that a fight is her way of testing him. Nervously chuckling, Kim apologizes for Terry's request, but to their surprise, Shin accepts the challenge. He wants to start right away, his hand already reaching for his sword. He adds that he cannot back off from a chance to fight with a top-level player like Terry, which is an honor for him as well. Terry is quite impressed by his words and understands that Kim must have seen something in him. She then apologizes for her unprofessional behavior and offers to exchange 5 moves with him in the fight, lightning already charging in her fist. She asks him to tell her when he is ready. Looking at her, he knows he does not stand a chance against someone like her for now, but he still wants to fight this battle in order to analyze his own strength and see how much he has improved. At the same time, he admits to himself that her aura has completely changed, even though she has done nothing except manifest her weapon. Without any delay, he asks her to start the match as his eyes change color because he has activated his psychedelic skill, ready to give his all from the very beginning. On the other side, poor Kim feels dizzy watching the events unfold. Terry claims the first move, and in the next moment she vanishes from his sight. Seeing this, he curses himself, realizing he cannot rely solely on his reaction time to anticipate her attack. In the very next instant, she appears behind him, but luckily he manages to block her strike with his sword. With desperation, he understands that he needs to predict her every move. On the other side, Terry looks as if she is merely playing with him. She compliments his skill and tells him she is going to give him a hard time in her next 4 moves. Then she increases her speed to the point that Shin gulps nervously. Deciding to rely on his other senses, he closes his eyes again, trying to feel her movements through instinct alone. But it is clear this match is far more difficult than his last one. Kim immediately notices his stunt of closing his eyes. She knows there is a massive power difference between him and her sister, and looking at his shut eyes and focused aura, she calls him crazy for doing something like this. On the other hand, the so-called crazy player gathers all of his focus to sense Terry's presence, and he succeeds in blocking another one of her attacks. This strike is clearly more powerful than before, and Terry is impressed. With a smirk, she adds that most swordsmen lack the clarity and focus he shows, because they do not yet have enough experience. Her words catch him off guard, as he senses she must have observed something in him. She steps back and declares that he fights like a professional. Shin then asks a favor, and she urges him to go ahead. He suggests that instead of completing 3 more moves, she should strike once with her full power. Terry is taken aback by his request. He admits that it might sound arrogant, but he wants to take advantage of this chance. He asks her to give him that one last strike while he activates his psychedelic skill again. He knows that he cannot win against someone like her, and this match would definitely leave him traumatized, if not for the experience he carries from his past life. Seeing that, Kim protests, begging her sister not to listen to him, but Terry agrees anyway. However, she adds that she will not use her full set of skills against him, since training mode is off and it would cause too much damage. All she can do is unleash her full speed, as her higher skills are too dangerous to use here. Shin immediately agrees, saying that is enough for him to analyze his improvement if she comes at him with everything she has in speed. She prepares herself, and our boy knows that if he fails this time, the result could be his death. So he changes his tactic. Instead of waiting for her to reach him, he grips his sword tightly and rushes to the spot where he predicts she will attack, ready to counter with his own strike. Terry is startled to see him charging toward her. At that moment, her shadow illusion skill activates. As a result, she misses him, and the hilt of her sword smashes against his face. Concerned, she asks about his well-being, but Shin is more interested in knowing why she used her skill after saying earlier that she would not. She then offers her hand to him and apologizes for using a skill she had activated out of instinct. He smiles widely, thanking her for taking him seriously. The two of them exchange niceties, and Terry promises to have a serious conversation with him next time. He agrees as he takes her hand, though Kim clearly does not look pleased by the exchange. Taking advantage of the moment, Kim politely asks her sister to step aside since they need to go on a raid. Besides, Terry has to prepare a report on the chaos she nearly caused here. With that, Terry leaves after greeting her sister. Meanwhile, our boy reflects on how this marks his first failure in his new life. Yet it is also true that if Terry had decided to go all out from her very first move, he would not have stood a chance. Now he not only has the opportunity to talk with Terry, but also another goal, to grow powerful enough to defeat this girl one day. At that moment, Terry glances back at him, and her gaze tells him to try as hard as he can to achieve his goal. After a while, an unidentified gate numbered 727 appears at Chunwi Station. Kim introduces her two other team members to Shin. One of them is a mage player, Park Taesok, and the other is still unmentioned. Shin feels happy to meet such high-level players. Taesok responds that the pleasure is his, as it is an honor to meet the famous boy everyone has been talking about. He then introduces himself properly. During their conversation, Shin asks about his ability in pyromancy when he hears the word ignite. Taesok confirms it, while adding that it belongs to the same realm of skills that Yangchul had. He then demonstrates his flame skill, explaining that he can conjure flames far more powerful than this one. However, he admits that he is only at the blue flame stage for now, and it will still take him a long time to upgrade his ability. Watching him, our boy comments on Taesok's reliability. He understands that someone like Taesok has taken the right approach while focusing on developing one skill until it reaches a certain level of mastery. That, Shin realizes, is the reason he managed to defeat someone like Yangchul, who had spread himself thin by conjuring different skills but mastering none of them. Then they turn to the girl beside him, Kang Juhee, who is a space wielder. She is also a mage, specializing in space connection skills. Shyly, she decides to display her ability as well. Her companion tries to stop her, but the damage is already done. Watching closely, Shin notices that the wind she conjures is different from what a normal space wielder would produce. It feels as if they are inside a bubble of wind, looking down at the city below. She shyly explains that this is her ability, and greets him once again. Shin immediately feels he can trust her. With her, their team now feels complete. He close-range fighter and Kim as long-range fighter, Taesok with his powerful fire attacks, and Juhee as the one who can back them up whenever they need to escape. He can already see how perfect the team is, even though they lack a healer. Their coordination is remarkable as they plan the raid and prepare backup strategies, each of them fully aware of their roles. It is clear to him that they have been working together for a long time, and such teamwork is essential for survival inside the gates. Seeing this, Shin remembers his own team from his past life, and a sad expression crosses his face. Noticing it, Kim approaches and asks if he was injured during his fight with her sister. He answers vaguely, while saying only that his mind is occupied with some thoughts. Then he urges her to continue, reminding himself that he needs to focus on the present instead of indulging in nostalgia. The realm they face under the gate is the Frost Hell, a land of frozen hills. Moving ahead, Kim thanks Taesok for his help in keeping them warm, as the unbearable cold here could easily freeze them. With Taesok's Flame Blessing skill, they are able to resist the biting chill of their surroundings. The other teammates also express their gratitude, noting how the last raid was nothing like this. Then Kim notices that besides his longsword, Shin also carries another weapon, one he never used in the previous raid. He explains that he purchased it only recently, meant for battles that demand more mobility. She is amazed to realize that he can wield multiple weapons. Shin brushes it off with an excuse, unwilling to reveal too much about his rare class. Just then, Kim turns to Juhee as they both sense the monster closing in behind them and know it's time to use Plan C. Kim gives Juhee the signal. In the next moment, Juhee opens a space before the monster's fist can crush them, transporting the team far away from danger. Now, with her bow in hand, Kim steadies herself, waiting for his next order. He, on the other hand, is ready to tackle this challenge as he rushes toward the monster with his sword. With both of them ready to attack, Kim also signals Taesok, who is prepared with his firepower. Kim shoots her arrow, now laced with the blue flame of Taesok. The arrow strikes the monster's face, setting it ablaze, and the creature howls in agony. Without wasting time, Shin slashes at the monster with his sword and signals Juhee, who immediately changes his position before the monster can strike him. When the monster assumes it has crushed him, a haughty expression spreads across its face. But our boy is already behind it, ready to finish the fight. He calls to Juhee once more, asking her to prepare her attack. At the same time, Shin activates his Demon Bash skill. In the next moment, he swiftly slices off the monster's head, to the shock of everyone present. When he gets down after this exhausting battle, he is confused to see their baffled expressions. Then they explain that they didn't expect him to take down the monster in one swift strike. Kim also joins in, saying she had the same reaction as them, and hopes that Shin has more surprises hidden. She is eager to see his hidden skills as well. Feeling the pressure, Shin feels like showing off all of his moves to her. The good thing is that they are coordinating well as a team. Maybe it's because their differences in skill balance each other nicely. Now they are ready to face another horde of monsters coming out from the mountain. After a while, they defeat all of them. Taesok is quite impressed with our boy's swordsmanship, while showering him with compliments. At that, Kim chimes in, explaining that Taesok is so happy because he usually doesn't get the chance to show off his pyromancy skills, but now, thanks to Shin, he has the opportunity to use them fully. Now he understands that most magicians are usually support members of the team, especially if the team doesn't have a reliable swordsman. But now, with Shin in the team, Taesok can unleash his full potential. It's another thing, though, that Shin can't tolerate the gooey eyes of Taesok anymore. Kim changes the conversation by bringing up the new skill Shin has used, which truly surprises her. A little while ago, when they are fighting with the monster army, Kim notices the armored demon ogre rushing toward them and notifies everyone. Taesok asks her for the next course of action. She forms a plan to first throw firepower at him, but for this purpose, they need to create some distance between themselves and the monster. For this, she asks Juhi to open her space, but before she can do it, Shin interjects, wanting her to open it directly in front of the armored demon ogre. Kim protests that the ogre's armor is its greatest defense, but noticing his posture, she immediately understands that he already has something planned, so she decides to trust him and asks Juhi to do it. Then Juhi opens the portal, and Shin rushes inside with his full charging skill activated. With this skill and his swordsmanship slash, he slices the monster in two, shocking everyone again. Now Kim asks about his charging skill, which is quite powerful even though it is only a movement skill. He tries to brush off the question by vaguely saying that he becomes aggressive because he has a reliable team. Suddenly, Juhi senses the presence of a monster and tells everyone to be quiet. They move ahead silently and spot a middle boss, Cerberus of the Frost Hell, sleeping there. Since the monster is asleep, they decide to form a plan. Juhi asks if she should open a portal in advance, while Taesok suggests raining fire on it. However, our boy is totally fired up because there is a skill, the Age of the Night and Wolves. Finally, he finds the right monster to be his practice dummy for this skill, which specializes in stunning wolf or dog-type creatures. Meanwhile, while everyone is deciding which plan to use to defeat the middle boss, our boy gets up with fire in his eyes. Noticing his face, they all startle and realize that he is making a same face, which clearly shows he has some badass plan. He confirms that he has a plan and tells them to stay away while he fights. They want a little explanation from him, but looking at the moon, Shin knows that he doesn't have much time to use his skill against the middle boss. This skill requires the full moon to be fully visible in the sky. Even if tiny parts are covered with clouds, its power decreases. So without giving any explanation, he rushes toward the monster, who opens its eyes the moment Shin lands in front of it. Sensing him, the Cerberus growls. His teammates also get ready to back Shin up. But before Kim gives any order, Juhi stops them, while noticing that the monster isn't reacting at all. Now that she mentions it, Kim also notices the same thing. She wonders if it's just on guard, but quickly rejects the thought since the monster was ready to attack them earlier. Then it moves forward and everyone stays alert, ready to fight. But then Kim notices something else they missed before, because it seems like the monster is going to obey Shin. And true to her assumption, Shin gets the notification that the Cerberus is now considering him mightier than itself. Soon it will enter complete obedience mode. However, Shin doesn't seem happy to end things this quickly. With no choice left, he finally finishes the middle boss off. Shin doesn't feel good about killing his new loyal pet, but they have no choice since they can't proceed without defeating it. With that, he also gains a rare title called Reduction. With this, he can choose any skill during battle, and the cooldown duration of that skill will be halved. He then decides to apply it to the recovery skill. Later, when he tries to take the gem from the Cerberus, Kim stops him. Shin feels uneasy, as he has never shared his loot before, being a solo player until now. He grows nervous, worried that she might ask for ownership. But to his surprise, Kim asks him to keep the gem since he is the one who solely defeats the monster. He nervously thanks her while asking whether the others are okay with it. They all agree, so he thanks them all again, though he now realizes that he needs to be more cautious about using his skill in front of everyone. Then Kim offers to leave him alone so that he can continue his activity. This catches his attention, and he asks her to elaborate. She calmly tells him that he always needs to do something with artifacts. His eyes widen when he realizes she knows about his skill. She confesses that she has known since the time they cleared the quest area. When she wandered off and turned back, she caught sight of his secret. He grows tense upon hearing this, because for players with rare skill, their skill is everything. He is far from happy about being exposed. But then he is taken aback when she assumes that he is some kind of creep who performs rituals with artifacts. She tells him to enjoy himself and promises they will give him privacy. Juhi, however, can't believe he is into that kind of thing. Meanwhile, our poor guy is left behind, thinking that being misunderstood like this is somehow lesser of an evil than having his secret exposed. Finally, he brushes off the embarrassment and decides to treat himself with this jewel, called the Heart of Ice, which contains extreme cold powerful enough to freeze the world. After a while, the team progresses ahead, and Juhu works hard to move the bodies of the dead monsters into one place. It's our boy's idea that if they collect all the corpses together, the final boss monster of the gate will appear to eat them. Juhu is skeptical about whether it will work. He is sure that the boss monster will come for food. She then asks how he knows it. He nervously distracts them by telling Taesok to light a fire in order to lure the boss monster out. Now that they have lit the fire, they stand a little far from the feast of corpses and wait. After 20 minutes, they finally hear the growl of the final boss monster, which is a grisly, massive bear of the cold. After that, they are already facing the final boss monster. Kim, looking at Shin confronting the monster, thinks about how much he has helped so far, how they even managed to reach this point in their raid because of him. But now, looking at the tired face of our boy, she understands that the situation has turned quite dangerous. A few minutes ago, they were forging a plan to finish the raid. Shin suggests being the bait, but Kim doesn't believe it at first. He calmly makes them understand their plan. They need to rely on the instinct of the monster, as it usually follows the same pattern of characteristics once it reaches a certain point in its health, which is called the gluttony state. When activated, it becomes more aggressive while its body grows more powerful. As a result, it can destroy and eat anything in its way. This is his reason for gathering the corpses around the monster, to avoid its attention straying from them. Then Kim asks, what if something happens to the feast they have prepared for the monster? Shin replies that's why he has collected the juniper wood, which can work as a sedative for the monster once it eats the corpses. But the problem lies in lowering the monster's health enough to trigger its gluttony state. For this purpose, our boy is ready to be the bait, creating such a situation where his teammates can cause real damage to it. At that time, he assures them that he will do this job perfectly. But now, facing this fierce and gluttonous monster, he cursed himself for his stupidity. He had assumed that he had become strong enough to take down this kind of monster on his own. But while blocking the bear's attack, he wondered whether he was truly strong enough. Whatever the case, it was clear that he needed to survive after regressing once. So, he decided to dodge every attack the monster launched. Now as he dodges, he realizes the monster is faster, and its reaction time is quick enough to strike at him again while he is still in midair. Before it can finish his life, the arrow of Kim pierces the monster's mouth. She gives him the opening and shouts at him to act immediately. Without wasting time, he jumps at the final boss, quickly thanking Kim for saving him. With that, he activates his full charging skill and dashes toward the monster, trailing an icy path behind him because of the charging effect. The grizzly big bear is frozen for a second. Shin is shocked to see the combination of his two skills, full charging with the freezing skill he recently gained from the artifact Heart of Ice, actually work. He doubted the monster might resist it with its resistance ability. Piercing the skin of the bear, he gets ready for the final showtime. The monster keeps shouting and he prepares with Demon Bash. Kim then addresses Taesok, who is ready to give his big shot, and shouts for Shin to step aside, because his skill, Blue Flame Flamingo, has created a large burst of fire that he hurls at the monster. He, watching it, is impressed by the power of that flame and expects the monster's health to decline after this attack. Though the monster's eyes are still open, its health energy begins changing. Now its energy is low enough that it enters the gluttony state to replenish its health. Kim warns him, because now the monster is going to devour everything in front of it, and the closest target is our boy. The monster's face turns horrified as it growls at him. Now, looking at the horrified creatures growing hungrier by the moment, he waits for Juhi to make her next move. Until then, he needs to hold against this monster. Staring at it, Taesok comments that it looks like a completely different beast after entering a state of gluttony. Then Kim asks whether Juhi is ready or not. Looking at her, he answers that she is still preparing. Kim shows her concern, wondering if she will be ready in time. But Taesok is more worried about our boy, unsure if he can hold out against this ravenous monster. Meanwhile, said boy is running from the bear while wondering about when Juhi's will be ready. He is now certain he might die here, let alone conquer the gate. Left with no choice, he activates his psychedelic state to see the incoming attack. There is no chance to dodge it, so he decides to block it head-on. At the same time, fortunately Juhi is preparing her space. Overwhelmed while charging her full power, she is still determined to start the warp. She finally transfers all of the beast's corpses in front of the boss monster, but the moment it's done, she collapses from the power she has used. Everyone rushes to her, and she weakly consoles them, while telling them that she has simply depleted her mana. On the other hand, Shin also lets out a sigh of relief as he finally connects his attack. Otherwise, he would have been feasted on by the boss monster by now. After devouring the corpses affected by the juniper grizzly, the big bear begins to fall into sedation. Everyone feels relieved, happy that they have finally defeated the boss monster, while poor Juhi feels dizzy from using up all of her energy. After a while, they once again face the boss monster, who is already badly injured. With a final blow, they defeat it completely and succeed in clearing the Frost Hell Gate. When it is finally over, Kim thanks him for everything he has done, though she admits feeling guilty about relying on him too much. He brushes off her concern, saying that it was his idea anyway. With that, they all level up after clearing the gate. With a dazed expression, Shin thinks he deserves it, having just saved himself from the clutches of death inside the gate. At that moment, Juhi also joins them and apologizes for not being there for the last strike. Our boy also apologizes for dragging her into his crazy idea, but Juhi admits that it helped her push her limits. He is happy to have worked with them and looks forward to doing it again next time. He remembers how all of them trusted him enough to follow his crazy instructions, but in his last life, things are not like this. He almost always meets a tragic end during every gate raid. Normally, raids with good rewards have about a 90% survival rate, but in his case, he and his team are always the unlucky ones who lose comrades even under such favorable odds. He always wonders why he is never the one to meet that tragic end. Now, looking at his new teammates, he sets a new goal with a smile on his face, to survive not only for himself, but trying to save comrades as well. It is time to check their rewards as the first clear bonus appears in front of them. Afterward, Shin hopes that each of them will receive something suitable. Just as he is about to touch the rewards, he is stopped by the Goddess of Luck, who wants to show her true power to him. Receiving this notification, he smiles with a challenge to the goddess, eager to see what kind of reward is waiting for him. He is surprised to see that he is given a unique rank artifact list and has to choose one from it. He is overwhelmed by the options, as they are far beyond what he expected from the reward. On top of that, he also receives a hidden effect for his chosen artifact. artifact, one that is even higher in rank than unique. He understands that he receives this only because of the terms of his contract with Goddess of Luck. Then, with a haughty expression, the goddess demands that he thank her. Grateful, he feels ready to do anything for her. Glancing at his teammates, who are busy checking their own rewards, he hopes they won't notice his. Looking back at the list of unique artifacts, he already knows what he wants. He clicks on the Great Sword of Fighting Spirit and pulls it from the screen. The sword carries a hidden effect which is a knockback burst. It holds immense strength with a blessing, and can even boost his recovery rate by 10%. Looking at his screen and then at his sword, Shin concludes that this weapon is insanely powerful even for a unique artifact. Now he is ready to test it as he grabs the hilt, but as soon as he does, he can't handle the sword's weight. He complains about it being too heavy since the lightning effect is not working on it. His system informs him that because of the penalty from the Devour skill, the effect of the lightning ability is halved. That's why it feels as if he is holding equipment that weighs 100 kilograms. He grows grumpy at the realization, feeling as though his own skill has scammed him. Seeing him struggle, Kim asks whether everything is okay. He answers her, then looks around at everyone else, who are happily receiving rewards suited to their skills. They are all thankful to him, but he timidly brushes off their compliments. Kim insists that they all agree he has put in the most effort, so they have decided to let him take the carcass of the final boss as well as the magic stones. Shin hesitates to accept such rewards, but Juhi insists that they came to this conclusion only after carefully calculating everything. Seeing their concerned faces, he never expected this kind of consideration from them. His greedy mind immediately calculates that he might earn around 150 million, including the worth of the boss carcass. He can't suppress his happiness, though he tries to control it in front of his teammates. Finally, after settling everything, they step outside in the evening. Kim suggests they grab a meal together, but our greedy boy is more interested in calculating the money he is about to receive from his loot, and insists that he will join them next time. They all exchange goodbyes, and Shin prepares to head his own way, but Kim's voice suddenly stops him. She asks if she can call him any time. He is taken aback by the sudden request. He wants to dismiss her from having any place in his life, but he knows he can't, so he vaguely agrees. With a happy smile, she bids him goodbye. Her smile brightens his face as well, and he asks them to go home safely. To see their expressions, Juhi and Taesok feel like they are intruding on something. The reason behind our boy's smile is that it has been a long time since someone spoke to him with such a bright smile. Now he can't wait to get home, so he stops by the back alley of Chunui Station Gate to eat the artifact. He successfully devours the fated greatsword. After consuming it, he also activates the lightning effect. The sword even has an additional bonus effect, just as he expected. Now it is time to check how much he has improved. He opens his screen to see the boost to his stats. In addition, the hidden skill Knockback Burst allows him to push opponents backward. He is now ranked C. Seeing this, he grins like a madman. Realizing how much his greatsword has boosted his power, he immediately invests his stats again, raising his luck to 200. With that, his critical hit range increases from 120 to 600%. He is completely overwhelmed at how much he has improved in just 15 days. While someone like Yoon struggles for years just to reach level 50, he feels satisfied that, at this rate, he will be strong enough to surpass his opponents in the next match. Suddenly, dark energy crackles behind him as his system alerts him to an eerie presence. Looking back, he realizes that the constellations have come to make a contract with him. Numerous constellations want to form contracts, including the Lion King, drawn by his swordsmanship. Alongside them are the owner of the beautiful beard and the Dark Hunter. The Goddess of Luck encourages him, explaining that they have come because his worth has soared. He didn't expect the constellations to appear this early, but he knows he has improved at a rapid pace. Besides, he suspects that the Goddess of Luck had a hand in bringing them here. So now it's time to decide whom to choose. The two prominent ones are the Lion King and the owner of the beautiful beard, who are true real-life heroes, who later turned into constellations. But he can't reach them despite their popularity, because the moment he even glances at them, they become furious at what they see as his insolence. He knows they'll give him a hard time if he makes a contract with either of these heroic constellations. However, the problem is that his third option isn't reliable either. The Dark Hunter is a real bounty hunter who monitors Dimensional Core for real-time updates in order to eliminate players. Her targets are usually those who exploit the system or gain benefits through illegal means. In his past life, he has seen horrifying cases where this constellation mercilessly killed such players, leaving others in shock and terror. A chill runs down his spine as he realizes that all of them are useless to him despite their potential benefits. Contracting with a constellation isn't a small matter. It can affect a player's entire career. So, for now, he decides it's better to stick with only the Goddess of Luck. On the other hand, Shin also dreams big, wanting to make a contract with a mythical creature because of the rarity of players who manage to bond with them. So, he simply dismisses the others, informing them that he isn't going to hire them. The answer makes them quite grumpy, as they are all confident in their skills, but they leave anyway. Before stepping outside, the Dark Hunter throws him an eerie smile and a chilling warning that she will hunt him down once she uncovers his secret. Overwhelmed, he decides to be more cautious around such constellations in the future. Next, he checks the time, hoping he can still reach his destination on time. He needs to head to the Rift, already aware that this one is swarming with kobold monsters, thanks to his past life knowledge. Luckily for him, these monsters fall into the dog and wolf category, just like the Cerberus he faced earlier. His skills are going to be handy against them, and he feels confident about taking down this treasure trove. With that, he prepares himself himself to take on 3 runs in a single day. He knows he needs to become much stronger if he wants any mythical constellation to take an interest in him. Meanwhile, inside the quest area of the Player Association, in the office of the Rift Management Bureau, a worker receives a call. The moment she hears the voice on the other end, her expression shifts to panic because a gate has appeared at exit 1 of Bupyeong Station. She shouts for the combatants to get ready to tackle the problem, but the next words shake her even more. The caller informs her that a player is already there, who is fighting the monsters. When she learns he's fighting alone, she panics further and urges the girl on the line to evacuate the area immediately. The girl agrees but hesitates, unable to look away from the scene in front of her. Our boy is there, battling the monsters with an almost casual confidence, even enjoying himself. Hesitantly, the girl informs the worker that our boy doesn't look like he's in any danger at all. The rift is different from a dungeon or a gate in our hero's world. It's like breaking the invisible line between the human world and the demon world. When a rift appears, monsters can pour through it into the human world and prey on innocents. The first incident happened 11 years ago. The good thing now is that, unlike before, our boy has knowledge of this rift, and he's determined to stop it at any cost. That's why he arrives 10 minutes early, ready for when the rift manifests. Right on cue, as soon as he steps out of the exit, he sees the rift forming. For a moment, he's overwhelmed, stunned by how vividly he remembers this incident even after so long. It's because the tragedy it brought last time, the countless innocent lives it claimed, burns in his memory. He's determined that no one will face that danger again. It's personal too. He lost precious people when a rift opened during his childhood. Being an orphan, he had never known the sadness of losing parents. But when he lost the people of his orphanage to that tragedy, he finally understood the true weight of loss. Back then, he had been saved by his hero. Now, as he grows stronger, he knows his purpose clearly. Saving lives is far more important than simply becoming strong. Now he can see numerous kobold monsters pouring out of the rift. He immediately activates his Time of Dogs and Wolves skill, which intimidates the kobolds. He's happy with the result, but not fully satisfied, because unlike Cerberus, they show no signs of obedience. Glancing at the sky, he concludes that the clouds must be hiding the moon. A fire burns in his eyes, but he isn't disappointed. Instead, the situation excites him because it gives him the perfect opportunity to test his improved skills. With his new sword in hand, he rushes toward the monsters, activating his full charging mode. Taking advantage of his speed and precision, he slices through the kobolds one by one. Then, he activates his knockback burst effect, sending several kobolds flying backward while injuring them in the process. He grins in satisfaction as he witnesses the powerful effect of combining his two skills. The kobolds are completely overwhelmed by his strength. Watching their panic, he realizes this combination is good enough to serve as an AoE attack, and with his luck enhancing his critical range, every strike lands with devastating impact. Seeing the kobolds bleeding but still alive, his determination hardens. He will finish them in the next strike. Raising his sword, a menacing expression flashes in his eyes, one so terrifying that even the poor creatures seem to shiver in fear. At the same time, a car speeds toward the rift's location. It screeches to a stop, and some players step out, introducing themselves as members of the Player Association. Lee Hyun immediately asks for the caller who reported the rift. The caller steps forward and points toward the area where the rift has opened. Lee Hyun is ready to rush in, but his brother, Lee Jung, stops him with a sharp voice, telling him to look ahead first. There, they see our boy, fighting like a total badass, already clashing with the kobold. His sword collides with the monster's shield, the impact ringing through the air. Both Lee brothers brace themselves, ready to jump into the fight against the kobolds, but they freeze when Shin calls out to them, warning them not to come any closer. With unwavering confidence, he tells them he'll handle the monster on his own. Ignoring their protests, Shin immediately activates his face-off title. With this title, he isolates the kobold from its companions, and his abilities are instantly boosted by 20%. Next, he activates his psychedelic skill. In reality, he intends to test just how much power he can channel into his knockback burst skill, while activating his other abilities simultaneously. With a swift swing of his sword and a powerful push, the kobold is hurled backward, its body cleanly sliced in two from the devastating blow. Meanwhile, his system warns him not to approach the rift itself, cautioning that it could cause severe damage. Both players from the association are left dumbfounded by the sheer force of his attack. Then, one of them suddenly recognizes Shin. Lee Hyun steps forward, showering him with gratitude, especially since there are no casualties, which is a rare outcome, particularly when dealing with a rift. Shin, however, feigns obliviousness, casually explaining that he was just passing by the spot. But Lee Hyun is sharp as he quickly catches on that Shin intends to go inside the rift, just like high-class players usually do. Hyun immediately insists on accompanying him. His brother tries to warn him, urging caution, but Hyun doesn't listen. He reassures Shin that they don't intend to get in his way. They just want to witness his skills inside the rift. Shin finally agrees to let them come along, though in the back of his mind, he can't help but think how these newbies already make him feel like an old man. After a short trip, the three of them reach the midpoint of the Bupyeong Station fissure. Our boy slices through the kobolds with clean, effortless swings of his sword, a confident grin etched across his face. Jung, meanwhile, is in disbelief. How could Shin be a low-level player and still fight like this? Before he can voice more doubt, his brother reprimands him, while reminding him to stay focused on their goal instead of wasting energy on mundane details like levels. Hyun, on the other hand, is determined to learn from Shin, convinced that the guy must be naturally gifted with incredible battle instincts. Young, still skeptical, mutters his suspicions about their mysterious companion, especially since Shin's health bar remains steady, completely untouched, despite the intensity of the battle. At that, Hyun is speechless. During battle, Shin's health is something extraordinary, which is something he is always confident about. The scene flashes back to 30 minutes earlier, when the three of them first step into the rift, only to be shocked by the sheer number of kobold monsters swarming inside. The kobolds immediately ready their arrows, all pointed straight at the players. Without wasting a second, Shin orders the Lee brothers to get behind him. He had already anticipated a situation like this, so he brought along a kobold corpse, now serving as a makeshift shield to protect them. When Shin notices the fear on Young's face, a thought briefly crosses his mind that maybe bringing them along was a mistake. Having to protect them while progressing through the rift could slow him down and make the fight more complicated, but then he reprimands himself for thinking like a weak player. These kinds of hurdles and tough situations, he reminds himself, are exactly what will help him climb higher and become a true high ranker. With that, he grabs his sword, already ready to start killing the distracted kobolds. The next monster falls within a heartbeat. Without slowing down, he moves to the second floor, cutting through the monsters as if they are nothing. But then he suddenly stops when he comes face to face with a certain monster, the infamous kobold champion. It's completely unexpected for him to encounter a boss monster this early, right on the second floor. The next moment, tension grips him as he sees the boss charging at him. He wonders if his knockback burst can counter the attack, but quickly rejects the idea. Using it now could put his own body at risk. All he can do is try to minimize the damage while somehow blocking the kobold's assault before it reaches him. However, when he swings his sword at the kobold's shield, he's stunned by the result because not only does the shield shatter, but the boss monster itself is heavily damaged. He knows he doesn't have enough stats yet to deal such devastating power. The only explanation, he realizes, is that it must be the power of his greatsword fighting spirit. On the other side, the minion kobolds freeze in fear after witnessing the downfall of their boss. Now, with cold determination, he's ready to finish them all. After a while, he finishes off most of the kobolds, earning an artifact which is a pair of shoes of rapid movement that can double his speed. Without wasting a second, he immediately puts them on. He knows the nature of kobolds to carry rare artifacts, but it's his luck that not only does he get one, it also fits him perfectly. With this boost, he anticipates completing the raid even faster. Looking down, he notices his companions holding their ground well. The corpses of the kobolds they've defeated are scattered around, proof that they're not entirely useless in a fight. With incredible luck on his side, Shin finds the raid surprisingly easy, and the rewards don't disappoint. An eerie vibe seeps from the gate, red lightning crackling around it. It's the central point, which is the place that holds the king's treasure. Once inside, he is startled by the sheer amount of wealth scattered everywhere. Gold coins glimmer in every corner, and for a moment, excitement surges through him. He wonders if he could just retire after looting all this money. This much wealth could make him rich enough to satisfy every desire he's ever had. But unbeknownst to him, as he drowns in thoughts of greed, a kobold hidden in the shadows silently raises its bow, aiming directly at him. In the next moment, the arrow flies, but luckily, our boy is alert. He immediately recognizes the fighting pattern. It's the typical kobold tactic, one so familiar that it makes him smirk. He swings his sword, trying to knock the arrow aside, but the kobold is faster, dodging his counterattack with ease. Now, he truly understands their game. All those weak kobolds were merely bait, meant to lull him into a false sense of security, while the king, the final boss of the rift, waited patiently for him to walk right into its trap. This boss monster is on a completely different level from the other kobolds. Without wasting a second, it fires an arrow at him, a shot Shin barely dodges with a full charge. Had he been even a moment slower, he would have been dead meat. Landing on the ground in front of his opponent, Shin sees the boss already pulling another arrow from its stack. Meanwhile, the Lee brothers finally notice the boss monster's chamber. Judging by the sound of the fierce battle, they realize Shin has already engaged it. They rush inside with quick apologies, but the moment the boss monster spots them, it activates the king's gaze skill. Instantly, the status ailment overwhelm takes hold. They are petrified, unable to move their bodies even an inch. On the other side, our boy stands tall, immune to the gaze. He had already activated his recovery skill, curing himself of the status ailment before it could affect him. Now, with his sword raised high, he glares at the boss, daring the monster to look anywhere else. With his next slash, his blade finally lands a solid hit on the kobold king, drawing blood at last. But his excitement dims quickly. His Demon Bash skill is neutralized by the boss's resistance ability. Shin can't help but feel a flicker of disappointment. He can't stun the kobold king despite having recovered from the overwhelmed effect. However, he understands, judging by the state of his companions, who are all level 100 players, that this kobold is truly superior. Determined to take it down, he rushes toward it. But then, he's shocked to see multiple arrows rushing toward him as the kobold king activates its indiscriminate barrage skill. Shin has no choice but to use his sword to dodge and block the deadly rain of arrows. Now, as he studies the kobold, he truly understands that this creature is on another level entirely. It has a strategic mind, keeping a calculated distance between them. What frustrates him even more is the seemingly unlimited stock of arrows in its arsenal. Worse still, there's the mismatch between the cooldown duration of the kobold's overwhelm skill and his own recovery rate. If this boss ever takes advantage of that weakness, it could mean his death. For now, all he can do is prevent this fight from turning into a war of attrition. Analyzing his enemy, he realizes that he needs something to deal damage from a long distance. Suddenly, his eyes catch the glint of gold, and in that instant, he understands exactly what he needs to do. Meanwhile, the Lee brothers snap out of the overwhelming effect. Both of them are so shaken by being petrified by the monsters that they can barely process what's happening. They start to believe Shin must have some kind of curing skill to counter the overwhelming attacks. But Hyun, watching the scene unfold, doesn't get a good feeling about it. His eyes suddenly widen when he notices the pattern of the arrows, realizing Kobold is guiding Shin deeper into the room. Desperately, he shouts at Shin, warning him that he's walking straight into a trap. True to his words, while Shin is busy taunting the Kobold King, oblivious to the setup, he's just about to step on a particular spot. The Kobold smirks triumphantly and releases an arrow, hitting its target perfectly. The king starts grinning, until its grin fades when it hears Shin's voice taunting that it's checkmate. Thanks to his ridiculous luck, Shin has activated his sacrifice skill at the perfect moment. Not only does it save him, but it also restores his HP to full. A complete win-win for him. And he doesn't waste the chance to mock the Kobold King, calling it a dumbass for not realizing that he was intentionally taking the attacks without fighting back. Then, with finality, he activates his psychedelic skill and combines it with Knockback Burst. With the effect of the Knockback Burst, the gold coins act like bullets, shooting straight into the kobold. Both brothers tense up at the sight before them. Hyun admits that it's his first time seeing a player like Shin with such an intense presence in combat. Unfortunately, the Kobold King is still standing despite its injuries. But this time, Shin challenges him to finish their match. Another clash erupts, but this time Shin successfully breaks its sword and finally kills him. With that, he defeats the final boss of the Kobold raid. Now that the boss is defeated, the first thing Shin earns is a title called Before the Drink Goes Cold, along with a level up. This title grants him overwhelming immunity for 2 hours. This is also the first time he receives a title from a constellation, originally belonging to the owner of the beautiful beard, who always finishes off his enemies before his drink gets cold. He turns to the reward for clearing the raid. The first one is the Talisman of Despair, which creates an overwhelming effect on the enemy, making them lose their will to fight. Then there's a boost of evasion, which allows him to dodge enemy attacks with a steady backstep. Finally, there's a gold-level artifact called the Necklace of Searching, which helps him locate his enemies within a 100-meter radius. Now his next move is to consume all of them in a secluded place. But at that moment, Hyun calls out to him, informing him that they need to get out of there as the rift is about to close. He already knows this fact, but doesn't understand the reason for such urgency. Then his eyes catch the treasure, and dread settles in as he realizes he can't take them away. Despite his protests, both brothers drag him out of the rift. Outside the rift, people notice it closing, and 3 figures emerge. Among the crowd are quite a few fans of our hero, but their smiles fade when they see the despair on his face. Hyun tries to console him, but he doesn't listen. Then, a reporter from the Player magazine approaches, asking for his opinion about being the hero of the Bupyeong station. The title catches him off guard, and he grows nervous hearing it. Meanwhile, Terry is in the basement rank 1 training room of the Player Town building. She faces 3 B-rank golems summoned by Cho Lee-hyun, a member of the Player Association. Without hesitation, she starts her training, slicing through the golems with swift, precise movements. Within minutes, she finishes her task, taking down all 3. But instead of satisfaction, disappointment washes over her because the battle was too easy. She realizes that this is the limit of how far she can go in mock battles. Her thoughts drift to her fight with Shin and the strange sensation she felt during it. She wants to contact him again, but doesn't have his contact information. She might have gotten it, if not for her annoying sister interrupting her that day. At that time, there flashes a news on TV as Terry learns about the rift and how Shin was the one who stopped it. Watching his interview, she thinks he seems really humble, judging by his nervous expression. Next, the reporter asks about his experience fighting a monster that was determined to be level 150, which is a level far higher than his own. Shin simply answers that they can't judge the winner based solely on level, as it's just a statistic. Looking at him, Terry understands that Shin must be aware of his own capabilities because she can clearly see the experience he carries as a player. She wonders about his master, while wondering he might have connections with some combat constellation. But with a darker aura around her, she also wonders if, instead of a constellation, he might have a contract with Divine Being, just like she has one. The next day, Shin spreads out his latest rewards on the mat, ready to consume them. Then he enters into a gap of unconsciousness for this purpose. With this new gourmet, he now has Overwhelm, Search, and Backstep skills. He feels quite happy to gain these skills, thanks to his luck stat, and hopes to become stronger before the true age of players begins. He remembers the early days of the times of warrior. Back then, most warriors held the stereotype that strength was the only thing they needed as players. But when stronger monsters started appearing, those who relied solely on strength met their end. As time passed, despair grew, until the appearance of Go Gyeong-soo, known as the Sword Demon. He was the one who proved everyone wrong by overcoming his shortcomings through dexterity and enhanced evasive skills. Instead of chasing pure strength, Gyeongsu focused on skills that could be used in every situation. That adaptability became the reason he could handle any scenario. Unfortunately, our boy had been too blind in his previous life to follow the same path. But now, he decides to focus on skills, which will finally bring him results. Now, his system absorbs the artifact and gives him 2 delicious dishes: mushroom soup from the fresh kobold forest and black pepper steak from the intense kobold plains. He feels quite happy to see these dishes, assuming the kobold king must have had good taste in food. But the next dish ruins his mood, which is a serving of larvae seasoned fresh from the kobold swamp. He instantly regrets his earlier words of gratitude. After a while, at his front gate, some reporters try to take his picture, only to be stopped by his guards. Seeing the ruckus from his window, he grows frustrated. He only came out to get some fresh air after forcing down that disgusting larva dish, and now this sight greets him. With no other choice, he decides to rest at home for a while. Turning away from the window, he figures he might as well stay in, since he doesn't have any plans anyway. At that moment, his phone rings, and it's Kim Jae-hai from the player management department. She informs him that they're planning to give him a plaque for clearing the rift. Shin, however, thinks it's too much. First the hero title and now a plaque. To him, these titles feel meaningless compared to the disaster the world is about to face. Clearing a single rift is nowhere near enough, so he decides to pass on the offer. But not anticipating his refusal, Jae-hai quickly asks him to at least accept the dungeon priority card from them. When she mentions the Silent Ground dungeon, a chill runs down his spine, and he immediately asks about the dungeon's approval. She confirms it, while explaining that it's been granted due to his recent success with the rift. Basically, Silent Dungeon is a dangerous place where players face the threat of silence debuff from its monsters. Still, Shin sees this as another chance to save someone. He remembers his companion, who was deeply fond of his younger sister, but she was lost when she went to clear the Silent Dungeon. His friend has lived with the regret of not accompanying her that day. Now, in the present, Shin is ready to enter that dungeon. Finally, our boy forgets about his old car and gets himself a modern one, enjoying the new and amusing sensation of driving it as he heads toward the dungeon. His initial plan was to spend his money only on artifacts, but after his last humiliating experience with public transport where people openly scoffed at him, he decides owning his own car is the smarter choice. While driving, he gets a call from Jae-hai, who informs him that the Silent Dungeon raid is opening today. He calmly confirms that he remembers, explaining that he's already on his way. Jae-hai assures him that other staff members will be there to guide him, since it isn't her job to handle that part. While listening, his mind drifts to the week of training he has gone through since returning from the rift. He has spent his time sharpening his skills, and now, fueled by the desire for real combat, he's eager to test himself in a true battle. Suddenly, traffic comes to a standstill. He frowns, confused because this isn't even rush hour. Worry flashes through him, wondering if a rift has opened nearby. But then his eyes widen when he spots none other than Gyeongsu right in front of the dungeon. Now, standing near the entrance of the dungeon, there's a crowd of female fans swarming around Gyeongsu. A reporter approaches him, asking his opinion about having such overwhelming popularity. Gyeongsu coolly responds that it's his honor. The reporter, clearly not satisfied with such a cold answer, tries to keep the interview going by asking about his strategy for the dungeon. His next response is just as cryptic as he calmly says that, as usual, he's going to cut monsters. That simple yet confident reply leaves the reporter completely charmed. Then her cameraman nudges her and points towards Shin, who is looking outside to assess the situation. Shin instantly regrets showing his face. Meanwhile, reporters are already crafting flashy headlines. Gyeongsu also catches sight of him, and his assistant informs him about Shin's accomplishments, especially noting how Shin's fighting style and swordsmanship are strikingly similar to his. Hearing this, Gyeongsu simply states that he already knows him, leaving his subordinates baffled. Shin steps out of his car, immediately surrounded by a swarm of reporters. They bombard him with questions like some asking if he's here to challenge Gyeongsu, others throwing out ridiculous ones like how much his car costs. Shin, trying to avoid Gyeongsu's gaze, has no idea how to handle the chaos. But when he finally glances at Gyeongsu, he can't help but wonder if the man is challenging him, or if that grin means something else entirely. Whatever the meaning behind it, Shin, while meeting Gyeongsu's eyes, quietly acknowledges his own limits and sharpens his resolve to grow stronger. On the other hand, Gyeongsu is ready to enter the dungeon with his subordinate. While glancing at Shin, he realizes this person isn't ordinary. Instead of looking at him with admiration like everyone else, Shin views him as a goal to surpass. Gyeongsu quietly repeats Shin's name to himself, knowing that their paths are destined to cross again. Meanwhile, at the Silent Ground dungeon, Shin steps out of his car, his thoughts still lingering on Gyeongsu. How someone could be on such an entirely different level. But rather than feeling discouraged, he feels fired up. The idea of having such a high goal excites him. It makes everything far more interesting. No matter what, he's determined to reach Gyeongsu's level of power and to do it as quickly as possible. Suddenly, his focus is broken by the sound of players complaining nearby. They're upset about not being allowed inside the dungeon even though it's their turn, claiming Shin is being given special treatment because of his growing popularity. One girl complains particularly loudly about his lack of decency. But when Shin gets a good look at her, relief washes over him because she's the very sister of his companion, the one he's been hoping to save, even though he can't quite remember the exact moment she disappeared. Though he's a little taken aback by the stark difference in personality between the two siblings, he finally deems her necessary to respond. Calmly but firmly, he declares that she has no right to talk to him like that because, regardless of the situation, he only came when the association permitted him to. Dismissing her, he walks ahead, which riles her up even more. She throws a series of tantrums and empty threats in his direction, making him briefly wonder if he should have just stayed home instead. As soon as he steps into the dungeon, a foul stench hits his nose, instantly annoying him. But he knows he can't help it after all. The dungeon is filled with undead monsters. At that moment, the corpse of some monster suddenly lunges and tries to grab him. Caught off guard by the ambush, he finds himself unable to use any of his skills for 0.5 seconds, which is because of silence debuff by the monster's attack. He can't believe the silence effect triggered with just a mere touch. Without wasting another moment, he recovers quickly and cuts down the ghoul in one swift strike. Now, looking at the horde of undead monsters, he realizes he needs to evade every possible hit to keep his skills active. However, what these monsters don't know is that our boy is an expert at maintaining this evasive, fishing-style combat, and he has complete confidence in it. Meanwhile, in the strategy meeting room for Scout Team 4 of the Player Association, Shin becomes the main topic of discussion. His picture is displayed on the big screen as the presenter informs everyone that they're going to discuss him as their next major project. The old man in charge is particularly pleased with the impression Shin made, especially standing out even in front of someone like Gyeongsu. On the other hand, the team leader of Scout Team 4, An Ik-yoon, has already heard plenty of praise for Shin from the Lee brothers, knowing that Shin only awakened not too long ago. His deputy, Shin Min-jae, adds that our hero has indeed become quite famous recently. An agrees, acknowledging that his growth is truly unparalleled. Still, he doubts whether Shin can yet be compared to high-class, naturally gifted players like Terry and Gyeongsu. Min-jae agrees at first, but while checking Shin's profile, he adds that, indeed, the data shows great potential, especially considering the Kobold Rift. However, he argues that without fully understanding the real dangers Shin faced during that rift, they can't properly evaluate his accomplishments. He even voices his suspicion that Shin might have manipulated the media to exaggerate his feats. His point is immediately objected to by Lee Ga-hee, the team's strategist, who is well known for opposing almost everything Min-jae says. Standing up from her seat, she politely apologizes for interrupting the deputy leader, but explains that she has personally been keeping an eye on Shin for some time. She begins presenting her findings from her quiet surveillance of him, recommending that everyone review the data she has collected so far. Turning on the projector, she first displays the normal growth rate of an average player. Then she switches the slide to show Shin's growth curve. The comparison is staggering, and her analysis concludes that Shin is anything but an average player. The room falls silent for a moment as everyone stares at the data, shocked by the undeniable evidence of his extraordinary growth. However, Min-jae thinks she is not in her right mind to present this data or that she is failing to look at things objectively. He points out that, judging by Shin's skills and the number of titles he has gained, his power is already on par with someone like Gyeongsu, who isn't called the Sword Demon for nothing. Ga-hee, however, remains calm. She states that she has gathered all of this data after reviewing everything objectively. To solidify her findings, she even met with all of Shin's companions from his dungeon and gate raids. Her first interview is with Yoon, whom she asks if he ever noticed anything odd about Shin. After thinking for a moment, Yoon jokingly replies that Shin, as a whole, is pretty odd. Ga-hee clarifies that she means his battlefield presence and skill. At that, Yoon honestly admits that Shin is incredible when it comes to using stun skills, but what truly sets him apart from other players is his natural sense of combat. Now this question is thrown at Juhee and Taesok about Shin's sense of combat. Both of them agree that Shin is quite incredible, but Ga-hee presses them to elaborate more, asking if he is incredible compared to ordinary players. Taesok explains that he can't describe it perfectly, but as far as he can tell, watching Shin battle feels like watching a veteran player with years of combat experience. Ga-hee urges him to explain further. Taesok clarifies that it feels as if Shin already knows what move his enemy will make and counters it effortlessly. Unlike other players, he never exposes any weakness. Ga-hee agrees, noting that this kind of skill usually only comes with years of experience, as otherwise openings are inevitable. Taesok adds that Shin's case is different. His body is so well trained that it moves on reflex before his mind can even process the situation. Ga-hee considers this and concludes that Shin must have an exceptionally delicate sense for combat. Taesok agrees, noting that this ability allows Shin to always find a way to counter enemy attacks, no matter how difficult the situation is. Now, in the present, Ga-hee concludes in front of her team that Shin is different because he possesses an instinct that rivals foresight. Not to mention, his combat skills are on par with A-rank player. With this analysis, she states that Shin has the potential to become S-rank player in the future. Meanwhile, while Ga-hee presents her analysis about him, our boy is exhausted from defeating swarms of monsters. At the same time, Min-jae doesn't like Ga-hee's analysis, because being an S-rank is no small feat. Ga-hee insists that she is well aware of that fact. Min-jae, however, grows furious, indirectly calling her observation about Shin's foresight nonsense. If that's the case, he argues, they can see that Shin has actually regressed. This catches Ga-hee off guard, making her seriously consider the possibility. Before Min-jae can push further, An interjects, telling Ga-hee to stop fighting like a child in every meeting. He agrees, however, that Shin is not an ordinary player. Then, he assigns Ga-hee the sole responsibility of collecting more information about Shin, despite protest from his deputy leader. Ga-hee, on the other hand, happily accepts this duty. Inside the silent dungeon, Shin isn't happy with the stench of ghouls around him. The monsters keep appearing out of nowhere and don't even bother to gift our boy any artifacts. Suddenly, he stops dead in his tracks, cursing himself for not activating his skill, detection. With this skill, he can sense any enemy within a 100-meter radius. The moment he activates it, his tension spikes, because despite having already defeated a large number of monsters, there's still a swarm of them nearby. Then, his eyes catch sight of a strange, fly-like monster among them. He wonders if it's truly a monster. As he reaches out to touch it, there's a sudden explosion. The blast pushes him backward, but thankfully, he had stepped back in time to save himself from the suicide fly. Judging by the presence of so many suicide flies, Shin immediately understands that they must be controlled by some mage-level monsters nearby. He knows he has to stay cautious, especially now that he spots even more suicide flies buzzing around him. Keeping his distance, he braces himself as a series of explosions erupts around him, triggered by 3 mages who have spotted him from a distance. Meanwhile, with things settling down, the deputy leader decides to delve deeper into Gahi's research. He asks if she has discovered anything significant besides Shin's sharp combat sense. Perhaps something about his mysterious titles. He doubts that Shin's method of acquiring such tiles is also unique. To his surprise, Gahi agrees with him, revealing that she has a theory of her own. Back in the dungeon, Shin's defensive sword activates just in time, forming a shield that protects him from the chain of suicide fly explosions. Now, shielded and more focused than ever, he is ready to take down the mages. Gahi, on the other hand, grows more certain of one thing, that Shin is someone far too complex of player to be easily understood. A few days ago, our boy is training in the underground training room. He keeps dodging all the arrows from automatic bows with the swings of his sword, a skill honed during his fight with the Kobold King. It has been 3 days since he starts this relentless training. He knows that besides having a rare skill, the only other way to gain skills is to train furiously. But there is a downside, because this kind of training only earns a player passive skills through sheer repetition. For active skills, he needs a structured training routine. It's not common knowledge, and the few players who know this secret don't share it. He knows it only because of his years of experience. Now, in the present, he has earned the support skill defensive sword through his rigorous training, and it helps him protect himself in critical moments. On the other side, the mage monsters are far from happy to see him still alive, and they summon a swarm of flies rushing toward him. Looking at them, he knows that the defensive sword is a great skill, but it has one flaw. He can't move his defensive shield. It means he has to stay rooted in one place to protect himself. However, our hero isn't called our hero for no reason. He has finally found a way to bend this rule. When the explosion occurs, he uses his sword to channel the defensive shield over his head. In doing so, he creates an umbrella-like protection that he can move along with his sword. Seeing him rushing toward them, the mages immediately cast the spell of Inferno, creating a hellfire and hurling fireballs in his direction. With a grin on his face, he taunts them, saying they're already too late. With that, he activates Knockback Burst on his sword, rattling and breaking the skeleton mages. At the same time, the middle boss monster, a Death Knight, fixes its gaze on him. Meanwhile, our boy obtains a rare purple magic stone after defeating the mages. He's thrilled to secure a reward worth 100 million after overcoming the dungeon's challenges. He decides to take the stone with him on his way back after clearing the raid. Now, his purpose shifts to reaching the center of the dungeon while activating his detection skill. Immediately, he senses a monster nearby, which must be the Death Knight. Shin is shocked to realize that the presence of multiple monsters he had detected earlier has vanished within moments. Besides that, he can only sense this one monster. At the same time, the monster appears behind him. Our guy immediately senses its presence but can't pinpoint its exact location, as there's no reaction time for him. Unable to locate it precisely, he decides to block purely on instinct. So, he leaps into the air, hoping his guess is right. With the force of the knight's attack, the ground he leaped from shatters into pieces. Now, looking at his new enemy, he realizes the monsters didn't vanish. They escaped in fear of this knight. From what he can see, this knight is designed to kill everything, living up to its name, Death Knight. Now all the Death Knight's focus is on him. Confusion clouds his mind as he wonders why such a high-level monster is here instead of the central room. But one thing he's certain about this is the one who killed his friend's sister. This middle boss, the Death Knight of Penance and Rage, radiates pure malice. With a loud cry, Shin steals his resolve, determined not to let history repeat itself, and blocks the knight's attack head-on. However, Shin is having a difficult time blocking the attacks, as the strikes from the Death Knight are far too heavy for him to handle. Before the fight progresses, let's understand what a Death Knight really is. A Death Knight is essentially a knight who, after death, has their soul bound to a corpse, becoming an undead entity. Their main skill is the Swamp of Silence, a constant purple swamp beneath their feet. Anyone who makes contact with the swamp is instantly afflicted with a silence debuff. This is why the association only allows well-prepared parties to enter this dungeon, publicly declaring it to be an easy task to clear. The real issue lies in how they calculate the dungeon's difficulty. They base it on the monsters like ghouls, which have a difficulty level of only 120. Because of this, many teams walk into the dungeon unsuspectingly, only to face tragedy. Because the true danger isn't the dungeon itself, it's the Death Knight. Forget its silence debuff, which is the overwhelming power radiating from that swamp at its feet. But the soul of the Death Knight is the real trouble. The more trained souls it has, the harder it becomes to defeat. This is why the association increases the dungeon's danger level, because this Death Knight is no ordinary monster. As our boy struggles to dodge its attacks, he realizes his difficulty level is around A, or worse, S level. Now he is pushed back by the Death Knight, blood seeping from his mouth. He is sure that he is really going to die this time. However, he gets up anyway, because of his old habit. Whenever he is standing on the edge of death, he starts to doubt himself. But Shin knows he needs to change this habit to truly grow stronger. With determination blazing in his eyes, he challenges the Death Knight to come at him with everything it has. Hearing this, the Death Knight accepts the challenge with a grin.